Alright, starting now for real. Hey guys, this is Ty Worsham. It is 1/23/20, and it is Loose Screws time. Loose Screws time. And apparently, I'm getting feedback from something. What is repeating my audio here? Check. Okay. I don't know what the hell is going on there. I was actually hearing myself. That was weird. Alright, completely unprofessional. We'll start this again. Check.
5 by 5.
Okay, so everything on my end. Start streaming button.
Oh,
Start the stream. We'll start the recording, and we will. All right, starting in 3, 2, 1.
Now recording.
Hey guys, we're gonna try this again. It is January 23rd, 2020. I am Ty Worsham. This is Loose Screws. Oh man, it has been a technical struggle all day long with this thing, and F you Twitch. So, yeah, it's been one of those days. Also, F you YouTube, because it's been, yeah. But anyway, we're moving forward. Tonight is kind of a slightly special episode. It's actually a very special episode. I'm not going to try to beat around the bush here. I got my typical co-pilots with me of Dravenos and Kai.
hello.
Hi.
And joining us on the show is a living legend in the elite community. PvPer, Thargoid Hunter, and Guardian Expert. His YouTube channel, Ed Tutorials, has 40,000 subscribers and over 3.5 million views, a lot of which are mine. He's here tonight to talk about us with the many things, including his newly announced special project we're all very excited for, edtutorials.com. He is my mentor in the world of Elite, because I can't tell you how many of his videos have walked me through the many mistakes I have made. The Gentleman Pirate, Commander Exegius. How's it going tonight, man?
Good evening. You flatter me much. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Let me start off by saying, so I have, if you go back and listen to a few of my episodes, there are several times I reference, hey, go to this video right here, because you have a little 3-minute or 4-minute or a little 6-minute video that tells you exactly what you need to know. It doesn't fill you with 35 minutes of fluff. It tells you exactly what you need to know, where you need to go do it, and how to do it. And thank you for doing that. You are the absolute home run hitter on that. When I say that you are my mentor in this game, I learned how to do Guardian structures because of you. And I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah, well, first, you're welcome. And it's great to hear that. I mean, it seems that you pretty quickly got the entire goal of my channel, which has always been, to be as brief and clear and concise as possible. I joke with people that my goal is always for you to listen and watch less and play more, right? I mean, when we get down to it, the whole reason that I do what I do is so that exactly what you just said, right? So that you can enjoy the game more, you can understand this, exceedingly complex game. I don't know about you guys, but I've never learned something with a learning curve this steep in video gaming. Why would you want to sit around and listen to me or anybody else talk about the game, right? You want to play it. So since that's what we're here for, that's was exactly why I started the channel.
Right on.
Yeah. So let's talk real quick about Ed Tutorials. This went live Tuesday, sure. I think, right?
It did, yeah, late Tuesday night. So I do a weekly stream every Tuesdays at 8 that I call Tutorial Tuesday.
Right.
And each week I pick a topic. Sometimes I'll have guests on. For those that have caught my streams, I don't know that I've ever streamed just completely solo. I kind of don't, maybe I'm too old for it. I don't get the enjoyment of just watching somebody play a video game that, is maybe interacting with chat a little bit. That's just not at all what I want to do. I want to do kind of exactly what you guys are doing here, have a group of guys that are, I always try to recruit a couple senior level players, experts in a topic, and, and we all discuss the whatever the topic is at hand while we're playing, right? So, that way you bring in different perspectives, because while I know the game rather well, I am certainly not the absolute, end all be all expert on every aspect of the game. And so to be able to bring in friends that are, that do have higher skill with me in certain areas, everybody benefits from that. And plus, it's just a lot more fun for me to get to interact with folks rather than just, sit here and play. I can't remember the last time, other than I guess when I'm shooting video, but that when I'm just sit and play Elite by myself for a while. I just don't play that way anymore. So yeah, so we went late. It was 8 o'clock that night. That's what I normally do at 8 o'clock Eastern. So it was 1 a.m. for UTC, so late for the European folks. But that's when we played the announcement video for the first time and published that and switched over the YouTube header to the new branding and launched the site. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I wasn't watching it live, unfortunately, but I did see the notification on YouTube, and then I was actually watching your Shield Cell Bank video,
Okay.
mostly because we were having discussion about it in Discord here about the right way to do Shield Cell Banks, and I was like, well, let me just go educate myself real quick here.
Sure.
Um, like I've been playing this game since launch, like literally launch day. I wasn't an early backer or anything like that, but I've been playing since launch day, and uh, I have not done everything. Like PvP stuff, I came to really late in the game. I'm just now trying to figure
Okay.
out PvP stuff. And to give you an idea, I just bought my very first Fer de Lance like 2 days ago.
Okay. Wow. All right.
And we got a guy in our squadron by the name of Dubs, and he has very quickly showed me that I do not know how to shoot, and I thought I was pretty good at it.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun doing that, and uh, you know, you, this Ed Tutorials website. Man, I've had your YouTube channel as like on my favorites bar on Chrome for I guess about 2 years now.
You honor me. Thank you.
Well, it all started like when I decided I wanted to get the Guardian frameshift drive booster,
Yep.
and I think
No,
that was
that's
the very first video of yours that I watched.
Yeah, that's been I think right now my actually most viewed video might be picking a home station, because that was one of my pretty early ones, and that was one of my first ones that did get a lot of traction and got a lot of views, which is funny. I go back and look at some of my old content like that, and oh man, it makes me even cringe, because it's I feel like it's not nearly as good as the stuff that I do now, which of course it isn't, right? We all learn and grow over, and it's been almost 2 years. I think that I want to say I registered the channel in like early February, and my first videos were like March and really got started in April. So I'm coming up on the anniversary. But yeah, the FSD booster video, I put that one out right when that module launched. I don't know if I was the first tutorial out for it, but I was certainly very close if I wasn't. And that video's got, I'm pretty sure it's also got the most likes and the most comments, and it's the one that gets the most traffic and brings most people in. Because I mean, let's be honest, it's probably the single most important module to unlock in the whole game. I know for me personally, when I'm talking to a new player, if I'm asking about stuff, and maybe if they mention, well, I haven't done engineering yet, or I haven't unlocked Felicity yet, my first question is always, have you unlocked the FSD booster yet? Because if you haven't, and anybody listening, if you haven't, it's roughly 90 minutes of gameplay to add 10 light years of jump range to every single ship you own. Just buy the module and you're done. So it's such a time saver module that it's you can argue the usefulness about a lot of the unlocked stuff, but that is not one you can argue about. It is a must have for everybody.
So looking at this ED tutorials, your
Yeah.
actual site that you launched.
Hmm.
First off, it's amazing. It's very clear, glossy. It's got a sort of in the world feel to it. It feels like you're in a station there with sort of the background wallpaper around it, and then you've got your featured posts. The very first thing you come across, which to me is just massive, is the material finder. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can actually. Before we jump to that, there's one specific thing that I want to mention. I've got to give a shout out to Commander Metsis, good friend of mine. He's been responsible for all of the graphic design that I've had on any of my sites. So he's responsible for my Exegius logo. He helped me with a lot of the look of some of the stuff that I've done in the videos, and he designed the ED Tutorials logo. He did the motion logo for my site. We're going to have an ED Tutorials motion logo for upcoming videos, and I actually showed a version of that in the launch video for the site. And so I've got to give a huge amount of thanks to Metsis, because without him, being blunt, the site absolutely would not exist. And the amount of time that he put in, he's recently married, he works full time, so his time constraints are pretty significant. And for him to have pitched in to push this over the finish line and give us the layout and the design that we have is all due to Metsis. So before I started, I just had to give him that thank you. Moving to the material finder, and yeah, we'll get into that first. And I do want to talk about kind of the concept and the philosophy about what the site's going to be. But I'll agree, as somebody that does a lot of engineering, I think I'm well over somewhere about 1,200 fully engineered modules between all my ships at this point. I engineer a lot, and that means I gather materials a lot. So the goal behind it, I came up with a couple years ago, or I thought of a couple years ago, and that was to show a tool that would be able to track not only what you're like, not the rules per se of what's in the game and what we know, like we kind of know what does what and what system states things spawn in, but wouldn't it be great to know what has actually been gathered, by commanders in real time? Right. And so I didn't have the talent to write, I'm not really a coder. I mean, I could do some hack stuff, but not to this level, that would know what that material was, what system state you were in, what system you were in, what time of day it was, those site pieces of information, so that you could see essentially a running tally of, look, Commander just picked up core dynamics in this system. Commander B just picked up Imperial shielding in that system. And so I had gotten to know a couple guys at Canon Research, specifically D. Mahaffey. I met him through back when the whole Gnosis debacle went down, if you guys remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, oh yeah, we could talk about that for an hour, I'm sure. And was chatting with him one day and kind of mentioned this to him because there's a Canon plugin for ED Market Connector, and I knew that it was reading data from the logs. And so I talked to him about, what data is it reading, and is this something you guys could add? And sure enough, in not too short order after that, they, worked with me to add in the fields and such that I needed for the tool and started logging the data. And so I then wrote the site to pull the data from them, and it pulls it on every 5 minutes, right? So that I keep as pretty up to date. And I could do it faster if I needed to, but that's pretty reasonable. So I'm taking the strain off their server, and I cache it all into my database. And then that lets me do a few things, right? It lets you say, where something has been found within this time range. So if we use, and mural shielding is a very common one. It's by far the easiest. And let me also say, I'm going to talk quite a bit about high grade emission data and G5 manufactured data. The tool tracks everything. So it'll show you from raw to encoded to everything else. But the raw and the encoded materials are pretty straightforward to get. Just quickly, for the raw data, raw materials, you're going to go to the crystal shard locations, or you could use the bug killer site that I did recently if you need just a little bit, or you can do planetary stuff on the video I did about finding selenium and other stuff. You can do it that way, but usually if you're finding in bulk, you're going to go to the crystal shards, and for data, by far, you're going to go to the Commander Jameson crash site. The bug killer site, you can do that too, but it is nowhere near as efficient as the Jameson site. And for both of those, the key is the material traders, right? So with the Jameson site, you'll have 100 grade 5 data in about 12 to 15 minutes. With the full loop and trading, it's about 20 minutes, and that converts into 16 of any other grade 5 mat. So if you need 16 data mine wake exceptions for frame shift drives, or you need modified embedded firmware for a lot of stuff, you can have 16 of those in 20 minutes. And there's no other method in the game that even comes close to that type of speed, right? So with manufactured materials, really the only way to find those is via high grade emissions. There's a couple that spawn from the mission board, like exquisite focus crystals and biotech conductors, but the rest basically can only be found through high grade emission. And since those are so difficult, now, they used to be, they're actually a lot better now, but they used to be damn near impossible to find. They would take forever. And even when you find them, depending on the method you use, you're going to get 3 to 5 at a time. And the material gathering video that I have that I put out a couple weeks ago talks about a method that you can use that really in under 15 minutes, once you find a high grade emission, you can farm it full. So in about 15 minutes, you'll get a full 100 out of whatever it is. And just briefly, not to go on too much of a tangent, but that method is you find the material. Once you've dropped into the high grade emission, you want to use collectors for this. You don't want to have to scoop stuff manually to be fast. So have a couple collectors, a couple controllers. So you've got 4 collectors out. I use a Crate Phantom for it. And once you've picked everything up, you exit the game, not just a desktop. I mean, not just a main menu. You exit to desktop, you restart the game, and when you log back in and you're in your instance, you charge for Super Cruise, but you don't throttle up. You then boost to jump yourself into Super Cruise, and then when you're in Super Cruise, you're at 30 kilometers or whatever it is, megameters a second. You're at super slow, right? You look on your left panel, and there will be an unknown signal source, usually right behind you. You target that, you flip around, and bam, it will be that same high grade again. If you exit the main menu, that won't happen. But if you exit the game, it will. And to be clear, I actually opened a ticket with Frontier support before I made the video to confirm that exiting the game to get a material to respawn is in no way a violation of the terms of service. And they confirmed that it absolutely is in no way a violation of terms of service. And they would not take action against a player for doing that. Because in fact, they tell us to do that sometimes, like when you need to get like the rank up missions, when you're going through the ranks of rank grind, right? So while, some people have been, oh, this is an exploit, blah, 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 it's certainly shitty gameplay. I'll give you that, right? But in terms of an exploit and Frontier being upset about it, it isn't at all. They didn't change anything about it in the January update. So moving past that, the hard thing is, how do you find those high grade emissions, right? What systems they're in, because the way materials spawn is very much controlled by system state. So for example, we kind of have known this from a long time because people have had spreadsheets, like Down to Earth Astronomy a long time ago actually started a spreadsheet where a lot of commanders started tracking where they found things. Okay. And so we worked out these general rules, to be clear there. As we know, everything in Elite is very random. So these are very general rules. And we know that, for example, core dynamics tend to spawn in none states or election state, sometimes boom state. And so you would go search there. Well, things like proto radiolics can spawn in that state. There's a number of different things that can. So what the tool lets us do, if we select something like core dynamics and we say that the default is the last 24 hours, because usually when the data gets a lot older than that, as long as I probably update the tool so it knows when the last Thursday was, when the last tickover was, and system states changed, because really that's what it's valid through. And so when you search that, you would be presented with a list of where commanders have actually found that material at that, in those systems. So while you're certainly not guaranteed to find it there, when you know that somebody or buddies have gotten 150 core dynamics in Soul, I'm just kind of making this up here, right? Well, wow, that's probably a really good place to look for core dynamics, isn't it? And so the tool gives you a list. It defaults to the top 10 systems for that given period. And I've got several features planned that I just didn't have time to get to for launch. One will be a simple ability to just copy the name, a little button that's just copy, right? It'll copy the system name to the clipboard for you. And another one, the first major feature I'm planning to add is ability to plot a route. So you would just click a button, say, here's my starting system, and it will plot you an efficient route through the top, whatever you pick, 5 or 10 systems, probably the top 5 that are routed in the most efficient order from where you are, and effectively give you a search route for that material. So
Can
it
I?
makes it.
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
please. No, 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 please.
I was just gonna say, can I pitch you something that you should add to your search criteria?
Absolutely, you can.
So last week, my sort of mission in Elite was I filled all of my materials, every one of all the raws, every one of all of the uh, uh, encoded, every one
Sure.
of all of the manufacturing, and my main sweet spot for the manufacturing was Condivix, and the reason why is because in that system the high grades were spawning, multiples were spawning that dropped Imperial shieldings.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
system also had a material trader for manufactured. So I
Yep. Okay.
literally would jump from the station to the HGSS, use your method and
Yep.
fill up,
Yep.
jump back from the
To the trader.
HGSS to the trader,
Sure.
dump it out, and then jump right back from the system from the trader to an HG to the nav beacon and start the loop. I didn't even leave the system, and I filled up and traded so many times.
Yeah, yeah, and that is a great idea. I will certainly put that on the list. In fact, whenever I suggest, people do, and the most recent video did, it was something like gave it a kind of a good YouTube title of how to find any material, the fastest way, something like that. And in that video, because I didn't really specify this in the Jameson video or the Crystal Shard video, is because it's funny. Some guys will give me a really hard time for suggesting you self-destruct or kill yourself, but I do it all the time just to save time. Is for the Jameson thing, I always start at Ray Gateway and Diaguandri. It's the closest raw trader, or excuse me, I'm an encoded trader, so that as soon as I fill up at the Jameson crash site, I found that it's fastest to get in my ship, take off, go silent running, and boost into the ground. I explode. I pay a 700,000 credit rebuy on my DBX. I mean, big deal, certainly to me, and most commanders that's not much money these days. You spawn right back in the site in the station. You go right to the material trader. You trade everything down, and you head out and do it again. So exactly what you're saying. I just kind of do it with the self-destruct. And the same thing with the crystal sites. I set off from a raw trader to begin with. I make sure all of my grade fours, because people have a misconception. There's actually no grade 5 raws. There's just not as many raw materials. So I trade all my grade 4s down. I'm empty on them. I head out to the crystal shards. I fill up on everything, and I quote unquote fast travel back by self-destructing. I spawn right back at the trader. And if I really want, like went for, if I really want all of my raws full, it usually only takes 2 loops. And that is about if you get good at it, about a 4-hour loop or so. So, I chat with some friends, put on a movie. Elite's the only game I've ever played where you have to entertain yourself while you're playing it, right? And so yeah, I think those kind of things are, using the traders, while they were pretty maligned at first, and I still think there's some problems with them. I do think the 6-to-1 trade ratio is a little tough, a little rough, right? I really think it would be more fair for that to be a 3-to-1 when you
Oh, for
do
sure.
yeah, when you do grade 5 to grade 5. But even as it is, given that we now can find things so quickly, and it's funny that you mentioned getting that many highs. It's for me, and I'm sure you've noticed this too. It's very random. I'll go to one system. It's pretty rare I go through 3 without finding a high grade at this point, because they're pretty pop. They're much better than they were. I mean, a year ago it was atrocious. And now, like, if I go through 2 or 3, the highest I've ever found is a system with 7 at one time. That's the most I've ever seen. Usually it's 2 on average, between 1 and 3, something like that. And even if yeah, again, I'm sure you know this, but for people listening, even if you target one and it's 100,000 light seconds away, if it's got a 35-minute timer on it, you're going to cover that 100,000 light seconds in, I'm
Mhm.
guessing here, 8 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And as long as you arrive at it with, for me personally, as long core dynamics are a little different in Proto Radio Alex are, because those spawn with a secondary material as well. So sometimes you need about 20 minutes for those. But Imperial Shielding, you'll get 100 in easy minutes. So as long as that timer has 15 minutes when you reach it, I head for it. Right. I
If
mean,
if you're
even if it's
finding
out there.
if you're finding that you're like it's taking you longer and you're like, why is it taking you longer? Let me tell you why. It's because on my ship and on his ship, we have 2 class 3 collector limpets. So if you can drop out 4 limpets in one go, you can get them all in the first pass and refresh much quicker.
You could not be more correct about that. And there's so many people I know that, will go out and farm stuff with just a cargo scoop. And yeah, okay, if I'm flying along and I just happen to see a high grade, I might stop in and just farm it real quick and scoop it, just because, that's just what I'm doing. But I'm a big fan of, I talk a lot about, obviously we play Elite, but Elite's one of those games where there's days where we work Elite. Okay. So when I'm working Elite, and this is really the main focus of my channel, I'm always going to do that or try to work out what the most efficient way is without exploiting. And by exploiting, I mean, breaking the rules of the terms of service or doing something like that, right? I'm always going to go for the most efficient method, and using collectors for farming high grades and picking things up. Absolutely, you want to. right? You could use, I use a Phantom for it, and I find that 2 Class 3s is perfectly adequate, having 4 active limpets, because usually you get 5. Sometimes you might get 6 or 7 if it's, like I said, if it's core dynamics and what is it? Proprietary composites that spawn with them. But
Yeah.
really having 4 is more than enough. I don't like use personally, I should say this. I don't like the big ships. I rarely fly the big ships. And while you could use one of those, the reason I don't like those for this is you're going to be doing that 180-degree turn in Super Cruise a lot, and you want something that's got a pretty decent pitch rate in Super Cruise, and the Phantom has the Asp Explorer works great for it too.
For sure. And just real quick, while we're on the subject of those trades, I would definitely agree with you. I've said it many times. A 1-to-3 ratio on cross trades would be good. And for up and down trades within the same tree, can we please just have the same aspect going up as down? So if I'm trading down and I give 1-to-3, when I'm trading back up, I shouldn't be giving 6-to-1.
Six
If
to
it's
one,
one
yeah,
to three down, it should be 1-to-3 up.
I completely agree. Yeah, in fact, another idea, and it's funny. I kind of hate coming up with great ideas like this because it just sets you up for disappointment because Frontier never listens to us. But one of the best ideas that I've ever heard around material gathering is, it's a shame that we have to do it this way. I get that comment all the time, right? That, well, this sucks and I can't believe you do it this way. And yeah, it does suck and it is boring as hell, right? Unfortunately, it's the reality of it. And it's what I want to do something that's as fast as possible, again, so I can play more and work less. But I wish there was obviously more gameplay around collecting. And to be clear to folks, you can go into a conflict zone or a res and you can have a collector limpets on a big ship and let your connectors fly out. But the problem is they're going to get shot down a lot. You're not going to get a lot of high grade stuff. And yeah, you might kill the occasional anaconda that drops, pharmaceutical isolators, even, and, exquisite focus crystals, core dynamics, everything. But it's very few and far between. So it just doesn't make sense from an efficiency standpoint. The best idea I've ever had is, or heard, because I can't take credit for this, is you get missions that give you that that pay in materials, right? And you get a mission that gives you, I'm again making this up, 5 exquisite focus crystals. Well, instead of giving us 5 exquisite focus crystals, give us a voucher for 5 whatever grade 5s we want. You take that voucher to a material trader. I would think this would be easy to implement because we already have the traders, you already have the infrastructure for that. You take that 5 to a material trader and you get 5 grade 5s, or you get 15 grade 4s, or you get whatever the trade rates on down are with the rates, and you pick what materials you want. And then that way you can use your style of gameplay, right? To gather materials. You're not, Braben was quoted a long time ago as saying he didn't want people to be forced into any specific type of gameplay. And it was specifically around credits, but I would argue that materials are actually far more valuable than credits at this point. That he didn't want to force people into a specific type of gameplay. And that's exactly what we have in the game, right? We're forced to do now mining to make money and these types of farming methods to be efficient about materials. And with a voucher type system like that, now you open up the entire mission board to players, which especially us BGS players who run the missions a lot, it all of a sudden makes those missions so much more valuable and interesting, and I can choose the way I want to play. And so that's one of the biggest ideas that I've always wanted them to implement.
Well, I feel a little guilty. I could talk to you all day about materials, and I sort of hijacked it and sent it this way.
That's
But
okay.
but
That's okay.
backing up a little
Sure.
bit and getting us back on track. Tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships you secured for your edtutorials.com and like how you set all that up, who you have
Sure.
with you, and also
Sure.
the rebranding of your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't I take even a little bit step back from that and kind of talk about the goal of the site, why I set it up and what its underlying goal, and then we'll talk about who's involved. So the goal was kind of a few. The basic goal is very simple and very ambitious. The goal is to be the single best resource for learning Elite, right? The definitive. Every guide on every topic that you could possibly want across the entire game. It doesn't matter what you're into, what you're looking to learn, the site would have absolutely everything. We're certainly not there now. There's a lot of content. I think we launched with almost 190 articles because I've done a lot of videos in the last couple of years. And so the goal was to catalog all that in a much easier way, easier to use way than YouTube, right? Because, on YouTube, if you're a new subscriber, you're going to see the last few videos and you might search and get hits on things and you might go look at the playlists I've created because I do try to keep the playlists up to date because that's about the best way to get through different topics. But, when you're presented with this giant grid of stuff, it's not categorized, it's not organized, you're never going to actually find things. So the idea was to build a structure through the menus and the categories that we have so that a lot of commanders I imagine would go through it and see, oh, look, he's got a combat section. Oh, look at under there's PvP. Oh, wow, he's got a PvP beginner's guide. I didn't know that because I get a lot of people that will ask questions like that, or they'll ask me, yeah, they'll be in the Guardian FSD video, and does this work on PvP ships? And I really want to get into PvP, but I don't know where to start. Well, hey, I have a guide for that, right? And so to make that and present that in a way that's much easier for commanders to use, again, going back to the philosophy of working and viewing less and playing more. So we went with that, and then when I thought about what I wanted that to be, I never wanted it to be exegius.com, right? I never really wanted this to be about me. I wanted this to be about creating tutorials and about commanders learning the game. And because I was, new to this when I started it, it was like, okay, well, I'll just set up a YouTube channel with my name and just, because that's kind of what everybody does. And once, and really this, I'll admit, this kind of all started, man, 9 months ago or so. A few of us started talking about this. We got semi-serious about it about 4 months ago and then hit it really hard about the last 3 weeks to a month. And as the few of us, our core team, I mentioned Commander Metzis before. I have to also mention good friend of mine, Apostolakis, who's in our Discord, who's probably going to head up our BGS and power play content. A good friend, Electric Nacho, love his name, by the way. Electric Nacho is going to be our editor in chief. He does editorial work for a living, so he's great at that. And then Commander Smoke from Galactic Academy is going to be our community manager. And so that segues into when I thought about what I wanted the content to be. I didn't want it to be just my content, right? Because I by the time I cover everything in the game and how much work it is to get videos out, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that really fast. And I wanted to leverage this great community that we have. And when you think about it, this is not the first ED site dedicated to tutorials, right? There's lots of sites that have guides on this and guides on that, but I've never seen anything that was completely comprehensive, that had both written and video guides, that was laid out in a really easy to use fashion. And so when we thought about what this was, it was like, okay, well, we want to bring on other content. Would never publish somebody's content without their express permission and involvement, right? So it's not like we're going to go just, start farming things from other people and posting it here. I'll also point out the site is absolutely not monetized in any way. There's no ads on it. It's not, the goal is for it to never be monetized. We're hoping to run the whole thing off, the support that I get through Patreon. I'll probably set up an independent Patreon for it to handle its hosting costs and stuff. I haven't figured that out yet. And so as we thought through that, I was like, okay, well, what would this be? And so God, maybe it was as much as a year ago, I registered edtutorials.com thinking, hey, that's a pretty damn good URL, and it was available. Incidentally, edtutorial singular is now I don't remember if it was available back then, and I just didn't think about it. It is now for a whopping $3,000. So we won't be buying that one. I'm guessing it's one of those things where somebody sees you set up a website and then they realize, oh, he might want this, and then they price it that way.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
But
like.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it is because I doubt it was that much a year ago. So then as we started to reach out, it was like, okay, well, who do I know in the community that I can start chatting with? And so our launch partners, kind of as I'm calling them, would be my player group level 11. So we've gotten a lot of our guys involved, and they've been working behind the scenes a good bit. And the guys there just give me a lot of support anyway in everything I do. And the first group that officially came on board was AXI, the Anti-Xeno Initiative. I know Gluttony Fang fairly well. I've had him on stream several, is somebody that understands how to work with you in a very professional way, right? That, while this is a video game, we all take this pretty seriously. And so reached out to them, got introduced to one of the guys with AXI, M. Graham, Commander M. Graham's his name. And they already have a big library of content. They have a knowledge base already. But again, it's kind of one of those silos of information that basically nobody ever finds out about. So we talked with M. Graham to, okay, how do we bring your content in? Are you guys interested? They absolutely were. M. Graham wrote the first co-guide. So I think they've done 6 or 7 guides, something like that. We set up the site to be co-branded, so anytime you go to any of their content, you get their additional header or their logos in the header. The site reskins to their color set. So the idea there was, as other creators come on and they post their content, or we post it for them really and work with them, their site, their content is recognized that it's theirs, right? So they're part of this, but we're driving for creators like YouTube creators, we're driving views to them, right? So they're directly benefiting for the guys like AXI who aren't concerned about any kind of revenue or any kind of ad share, any that thing. They're just getting their name out and publicity from themselves. And then the wealth of information those groups have in very specific areas is now leveraged to a much, much bigger audience than they would normally be able to get it in front of. Right. And so talking about the groups that we've talked about that we have on the docket to move forward with, the Galactic Academy will more than likely be the first one. We worked with them a fair bit up till launch and just didn't get kind of all our stuff in a row and ready to go to be announced at launch, but they should come on board here. I would imagine they're going to be first in the next couple of weeks at the longest, maybe even next week. We've talked with, and it will include content from the pilot, who doesn't necessarily do tutorial content, but it's still very much in line with learning the game and learning the different ships. He tends to cover all the different ships a lot. So that sort of content from his will make sense. We're going to include some stuff from Yamix. And while certainly the majority of his content isn't really appropriate for the site and isn't really, tutorial based, he absolutely does more commentary tutorial, I would say, like commentary on weapons. His recent video about the commentary on the January patch would have been, if it had been if we'd have been ready to go, would have been completely appropriate. We've talked to Obsidian Ant, so we're going to include Obsidian's content, specifically like his. I know he's got that hour long kind of brand new commander beginner guide. I think it's essentially him playing for the first hour and explaining a lot. We're going to include that. We're going to include his 3306 updates so that there's, as those updates come out, those go to the channel right away. So, so the idea is it's always got new content. There's always something flowing through it. There's always a reason to come back to the site, not only as a reference, but as an ongoing, there's always something new to see. There's always something new to read. And I'm trying to think. Fanalex Gaming, he's a pretty small new guy. I'll admit the first of his tutorials I've seen was a mining tutorial, and I'll admit it was fantastic. He's got a great voice. He's doing stuff very clear and concise. He's clearly writing scripts. He's got good editing skills. And so when we look at the content that we want, we've decided that, and this might sound very egotistical, and God, I don't mean it to be, but like my content is kind of the bar. So we want content that is as high a quality as what I've done and higher. Right. So we're not going to go just fine. I've had a couple people reach out, oh, hey, I know a good bit about this. And my response is, okay, that's great. If you feel like you are in the 99.5 percentile of knowledge on this subject, and that there are few in the game that know more about it, and that you can share an incredibly high level of knowledge, that's what we're looking for. Right. So we want to curate that level so that there's never factual mistakes. There's never, just kind of, because we all know, look, with a game like this, I remember when I was at 500 hours. Oh, wow, I'm at 500 hours. I know this game. And I'm at 6,500 hours now, and I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Right. And so we wanted to make sure we cultivated that level of content so that it's all, incredibly high level. And again, with the goal of being as concise. Some of the content will go deeper, right? We brought on, or we'll be bringing on one of the PvP groups, NATO, like NATO, the organization. I can't remember what they said. They came up with an acronym, what it stood for, but I can't remember what it is right now. They've got some of, if not the best pilots in the game. And to be clear, it's funny, you introduced me as a PvP pilot, and I certainly enjoy that, but I am by no means like a top skill PvP pilot. I have fun when I get to do it, and I can hold my own with a lot of the guys, but the guys that will be writing some of our PvP content are specifically going to be, literally some of the best pilots in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of, and then going forward, yeah, I think we've already had 4 people reach out to offer to do translations into native languages. I think we've gotten Spanish, German, Portuguese. And I'm
Awesome.
forgetting what the fourth one was. Yeah, right. So, and that's something, to be honest, we hadn't even thought of. Right. Like and I kind of feel stupid that we didn't. So it's like, oh, okay, how are we going to add that ability into the site? So, we're looking in how to extend that. And so, yeah, so it's kind of an open offer. You know, Buddy feels like they're certainly already a creator, because we all know, especially you think there's a lot of guys. I've got several friends who have said for a long time, wow, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do some PvP videos or some BGS videos. And they're very high skill, very knowledgeable, but man, the reality is trying to get a channel off the ground. God, that first 1,000 subs, man, I remember just looking at refreshing like by the hour, waiting for that to hit 1,000 subs, right? And then, then 5,000 and then 10, and trying to build that audience is so difficult, and you're constantly trying to share your stuff to Reddit and share it to the forums and, share it to everybody you can to get it out there. And so this gives those small guys a voice where, maybe their channel doesn't blow up, but they get those, that content that they're doing that is great. I'm going to admit again, Fanalax, if I'm saying his name right, I got to find out from him if I am. His content is really great, but his channel is still super tiny because he's getting lost in the sea of YouTube and the sea of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a constant struggle, because I feel like there's always new people putting something out, and this game is a vast game, and you don't, until you really kind of. I mean, I've been playing for 5 years, and I don't know actually how many hours I got, but I got like 6 weeks in the game, so whatever that multiplies out to. It's I mean, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of time, and when you're kind of thinking about like the tutorials to put together, is it a situation where you're like, well, we don't have a tutorial on Guardian fighters, and why they're bad or why they're good? Do you go looking for something like that, or do you like, well, let me make a video why that is?
Yeah, I mean, so kind of two ways, right? So as certainly as new features get added, like the Guardian fighters are a great example. As soon as they got it launched and announced, I mean, obviously I play the game a lot, and so I try to stay as connected to the new features that are coming as I can. And so, hey, the Guardian fighters get launched. Well, I mean, just selfishly, personally, I want to go check them out and see how they are. So I'm going to go do that. And so now I just hit record when I do that. I do my research and I figure it all out and I work out. I talk to friends, I play with others. That's why I say, the guys in our player group are just invaluable for this kind of stuff, and work out what the best way to do it is, what they're all about. We play through them, and then if it's a feature like the Guardian Fighters, I tend to do a lot more just here's how you get it, here's how they work, and a lot less these are great, these suck. Right.
Right.
So those I tend to talk about on live streams or in the comments. I actually really do read every single comment I get. I try to reply to every single comment I get because I really enjoy that. Really enjoy. You mentioned off the top of the show that I do PvP piracy, and what I love about PvP piracy is I love engaging with another person. Right. I want to see how they're going to react. What are they going to do? Can I get them to stop? Right. Can I get them to give me a tiny 2 tons of cargo? Right. Are they going to run from my little sidewinder or not? And so I love that human interaction when it comes down to it. So I'll do stuff that certainly I find interesting, right? I mean, honestly, that's a big part of it, right? It's got to be something that engages me. And then secondarily, I do very much love it when I get requests or suggestions, and or people bring ideas to me. For example, the selenium farming video I did recently. Up until that, people would say, "Oh, damn, there's no crystal shard site for selenium. What do you do?" And my answer is always, "Well, I just trade the yttrium and tellurium or whatever it is. I can't remember the ones
Mm-hmm.
that aren't needed very much. Yeah, I just trade all those down because I'm never going to synthesize a jump, so I don't care about yttrium. That's all it's used for, if I remember right. But one of the guys that we play with a lot sent me a, hey, here's exactly how I find selenium, and this is pretty quick. And it's not as fast as you can get the other materials at the crystal shards, but hey, for selenium, it's pretty damn good. So he and I played through that. He kind of explained his method to me. Hey, this is awesome. People would benefit from this because I get this question all the time. And there you go. I make a video on selenium. So it really kind of goes both ways. I'll admit, through once this with the launch of the site, one of the comments, the most, I'm not going to call it negative, but the most constructive comment I've probably gotten has been that my content, or the content on the site, which right now is pretty much mine, is pretty weak in absolute beginners, and that's completely fair, right? I don't have a lot of your first hour or your first 10 hours type of content, right? I'm much more focused on kind of after that, and for kind of two reasons. One is, it's, as I said before, it's what interests me, right? It's what I do. And two, usually once you're usually not coming to YouTube or to a tutorial channel before you start playing a game, right? Most people pick up the game, they start playing the game, and by the way, I actually think the little in-game tutorials, the little scenarios you play for, are not bad, right? They're pretty good for learning. Other than there's a couple of them that are way wrong. If you do mining, don't turn your shields off. Right? I think one of them, I think the mining one, like, oh, you don't have enough power, so just turn this off. And oh my god, I cringed when I saw that. But so those are a good place to start. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. In fact, I don't know if you guys saw, but if not, I'll get you the link later. My about a year ago, this was right before I took my break, so that's why I kind of didn't do anything with it. But I decided, okay, what's the best way to do some new user content? Who do I know that doesn't know the game and that I could teach? Well, so I just very quickly, I live with my folks to help care for them because they're getting pretty old, and so I thought, hey mom, would you let me teach you Elite? And she kind of got into it. She got about, I think she did about 40 or 50 hours. She got where, and she's 76, by the way, grandmother of two, where she could take a black box discovery mission, those where you just go find the black box and return it. She could take the mission on the mission board, take off, fly outside the station, plot her jump, make her jump, fly in super cruise, drop it on the signal source. I mean, she could do the whole mission pretty much start to finish by herself. Right. I mean, I'd sit over her shoulder and keep her on task. And so once she got pretty decent at it, I actually did a live stream with her one night where she played. I put her on camera while she was playing. And the best part of it, and this is the link I'll get you so you can, if there's a way you share links with these, she got interdicted. It was by an NPC, not a human. And she had been interdicted before, but every time she did, I knew she wasn't under threat. So I just had her throttle down and just, not fight it because I wasn't going to try to explain it to her. Well, in the heat of the moment, it was, hey, let's see if she can beat it. And sure enough, she did. And the
nice.
moment, yeah, which actually is a little bit of a testimony to how silly NPC interdictions are. If a grandmother can win her first interdiction, right? Because you would think that she shouldn't be able to, but I digress. Well, when she won it, oh my God, she literally started clapping and cheering, and she just was absolutely having a blast. And
That's
I want to
great.
say right after that, Harry Potter of Salome fame, and most people know Harry, Harry clipped it and posted it to Reddit. So it's made the rounds a couple times. I think Frontier even played it in one of their live streams once
Hey,
because it's so damn funny.
I actually have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, okay.
Later that same evening, Grandma interdicted me and destroyed my cutter. So we're gonna have a talk.
Not my mom.
No, no,
Had
it was just
oh, okay,
joking.
okay,
I
okay. I
was
was gonna say,
joking. Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute, wow, that wasn't gonna happen. Well, actually, the last funny thing I'll tell about that. So, she played for those 40 or 50 hours, and she kind of had enough. I mean, it wasn't really her thing. I mean, and oh, and by the way, just to point out, she's also sitting in my cockpit flying with full HOTAS controls, pedals, the whole thing, right? So this was not just keyboard and mouse or little controller, right? She's doing the whole nine yards. She didn't like VR. I couldn't get her to play in VR. She gets dizzy and doesn't like VR, so she just played on the monitor. But couple, I don't remember how long ago it was after that, but after that, when the patch came out that added the Super Cruise Assist and the advanced docking computer, right, that would, that flies us out of the station now, I mentioned to her, because at the time that's what she struggled with, right, was using, like, the thruster controls on the HOTAS are tricky, and, she really struggled with that a bit. And I told her, I was like, oh, by the way, they added the advanced docking computer, and now it finally flies you out of the station. And she looked at me, she goes, well, who cares about that? I know how to fly to the station now. I don't want that. Right. And I was
Grandma,
like, yeah, okay. Good response.
So grandma's calling out all of y'all using the advanced docking computer.
Exactly.
Beware.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Right.
so look, we've covered, obviously, you do the quickies with the Exegius and your short tutorials, and now we've covered the ED tutorial. We cannot we cannot skip past a very other sort of crucial aspect of what you do, which is your streaming series. Specifically, I mean, your tutorial series are awesome, and I've been on one or two of them. I was on the one. Remember, we were figuring out right when the patch dropped and figuring out the mining changes on the core and
Absolutely.
wing mining.
Yeah.
But y- dude, you're just hitting it out of the park the last couple weeks in a row. The literally off the top of my head, the last three Fridays with Exegius, we've had so last week was actually Thursday with Exegius, Thursday with
Yep.
friends. It was Alec Turner with the Buckyball. And
Yep.
and for any of you listening that have not heard our interview with Alec Turner 3 or 4 episodes back, go get that. It's that guy is
Great
amazing.
guy.
And
Yeah. Great guy.
your performance, let me tell you something. I was flabbergasted with your performance because you literally did that race more or less blind. You had marked out the points ahead of time, but
Yep.
you
Yep.
did the race more or less blind. Like at the part where he called out, he was like, "Yeah, you go through that tunnel," and you're like, "What? This one over here?" And he's like, "Well, you came here and scouted it, right?" And you're like, "Nah, it's all right." And you just
Yeah.
first
I
try
hadn't.
shot through there while you're doing chat, while you're doing an interview with him. That was incredible.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. I'll admit that one specifically was a lot of fun because it's kind of rare, especially on those that certainly that I'm doing new gameplay, right? That I've not done before. And I mean, being fair, I've been to installations, I've done a fair bit of CQC. So in a way, that wasn't that big a deal to me. I mean, it was, it was, I had been there to drop in, oh, okay, here's the instance, bookmark it and left, right? So I absolutely did not know exactly where the tunnel was. But I, didn't seem like it was that hard to find it. If I had not, I kicked myself because I made the one mistake where I plotted to the wrong system and wasted about 5 or 6 minutes. I think I came in sixth place in the race. Of course, I should say that was 6 of 6. So I came in last place.
but
I did beat some of the dolphin times. So I did at least beat some of those guys.
but
Um,
you do need to get credit, and Alec said quite rightly, because I mean I've talked with Alec throughout the week, and almost every one of the experienced buckyballers that did that one, it took them more than one attempt to finish it the first time
sure.
without exploding themselves in a tunnel at low, at low hull or whatever. But the fact that you finished it first go, I mean, the buckyballers, you say you finished six. Yeah, you finished six on your first time trial. The average of the serious buckyballers, when I talk to Alec, he'll end up running a course 17, 18 times
Was gonna say, I
through the
thought he
week.
even, I think he might be even said, and he might have just been kind of throwing a number out, but I think he said he'd done it 20 times. And the funny thing is, I really did want to go back and do it again. So if you guys listen to the interview, I actually am a racer at heart. I was a racing instructor for about 10 years, and so I love, and this is track driving racing, and so I love that pursuit of every scrap of time, right? I love that pursuit of, I mean, at this, not to get too deep, but the local track I used to run at, there was the 2 minute time limit was really the separated the men from the boys, right? To get a car under 2 minutes was, I mean, not only did you basically need a full class race car, but even with that, to get 2 minutes was just, it was incredibly rare. And man, I remember getting to 201 and 2 minutes point 0.8, right? And 2 minutes
Oh,
point
Oh.
0.6, and just watching the timer in car. And I will never, I truly will never forget, as goofy as it sounds, it was one of the best moments of my life when I broke it. And I remember coming around the last set of corners, and it gives you a predictive time of what you, as you're on the track, as to what your time's going to be. And I'm looking over, and it's predicting a 156, or what was it, a 159, right? And I just was, I mean, oh my God, I was like practically shaking. I'm pushing as hard as I can. And when I crossed, I 158.6. And when I did that 50, I've got video of it somewhere. I'm just screaming in the car. I was so damn excited, right?
Man, I bet that
And I
adrenaline
very
rush was
much,
crazy.
yeah, right. I very much got that feeling. not as much, but a little bit, doing the buckyball race, and I could see the desire to do it again, and I just didn't have the time to get back to it and do it again. But but the like, okay, I'm sitting there afterwards thinking, where the fuck did I? Because God, I'm gonna say my time was 36 minutes, and the fastest time was like 24, and I'm going, oh my God, where was 12 minutes? Like, right, like where I know where there's 5 or 6 minutes, but shit, and that's what you do in racing, right? So yeah, that was particularly a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. I was wondering also that on your livery there for that ship,
Mhm.
I saw the little the Porsche on it, and I was wondering that's not regulation, is it?
I had what did I have? I don't remember what I had on that thing. I did name, so just a quick little history. My name, Exegius, is based on I used to race a Lotus Exige, and so that's where Exegius comes from. So I did name my courier for that race Exige because I thought that was kind of fitting, given it was a 885 meter a second courier build, which is as fast as they'll go. So I figured, okay, if it's going to be a fast small class ship, that's pretty much exactly what my Exige was. So I'll name it that.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was a fun one.
So then the week before that was an incredible 3-hour talk with the guys, the anti-Xeno guys, and talking
Yep,
about the history and lore of anti-Xeno stuff, all the Thargoids, and they've returned now, and all of that, which was okay. So it was both incredible and also so varied from the Buckyball. It's such a different situation.
sure.
And then the week before that was you had a composer come in and you guys are talking about the music, and like it's so varied and so interesting. So I just want to make sure everyone gets out and checks your stream before, because we always give it at the end, but you never know, people are checking out at the end.
Sure.
Plug your YouTube and your Twitch, the whole
Yeah.
9 yards, so people can go hit it up.
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is easiest. It's it's if you just search YouTube for Exegius, it's YouTube/CMDR Exegius. So that's the direct link. Obviously, we talked a lot about the site edtutorials.com. That's one of the fastest ways because that's kind of maybe even easier to remember than trying to spell my name because everybody gets it wrong. In fact, I remember one of the times it was really frustrating. Was going to mention me on something. I can't even remember what it was about, and I knew they were going to, so I was watching the live stream, and Will's like, "Oh yeah, and Commander Exigius or something like that." And I was like, "Dude, I've only said the name like 150 times in every video I've ever produced, right? Like, come on, right? Like you can get it right. It's not that hard."
So just to be
Um,
clear, you're calling out Will Flanagan, right?
well, yeah,
Flanagan,
exactly. There you go. There you go. Flaganin
it's
again, right?
Wheel Flanagan.
Right. And so then the two streams you mentioned that are my standing streams are Tutorial Tuesdays, which is on Tuesdays, shockingly enough. It's at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then Friends on Fridays, what I call the Friday stream, with the goal being to find somebody or some group from the community to expose them, so, like show them, introduce them to the group, or to the community. So I've had, you mentioned them. Miguel Johnson was the composer I had on. I actually went to music school. I was a jazz performance major in school. So it was a ton of fun for me to him. At this point, I pretty much use his music exclusively in my videos just because I think he is such a talented composer. And I really, really, I love classical film score type music, right? Like, Danny Elfman and guys like that are modern composers. And that's very much what Miguel's stuff is like. So it was a lot of fun to have him. I've had the Fuel Rats on in the past. I've had Operation Ida. I've had SDC, right? One of the more hated PvP groups. I've done, kind of. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'll have anybody on that's not toxic and that's not cheating. That's really my and kind of like I said with the site. I look for people that are high skill level, high knowledge level, and that obviously are good to talk to, right? That you can carry on a conversation with for an hour or two, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that one's it. And that one actually is at 3 o'clock Eastern, or excuse me, 1 o'clock Eastern on Fridays. And I do that one a lot earlier because that winds up being 6 p.m. UTC. So that one's almost for the European guys, right?
Right.
To make that a
Right.
little better thing. And then the only other thing I would plug that we haven't mentioned yet is this week I started what's now going to be a weekly schedule on Mondays at 8 Eastern and Wednesdays at 8 UTC, which is 3 Eastern, an event I call Sidewinder Slaughter, if I can mention that real quick.
Yeah.
Oh
And so
yeah.
Yeah, and so what Sidewinder Slaughter is, it's pretty straightforward. Everybody starts in a bone stock E-rated Sidewinder, so you don't do anything. You can, the rules are you can remove anything you want. So right off the bat, you can take off the docking computer and the Super Cruise Assist and your cargo rack, because obviously you don't need those. And everybody goes outside the station. We do it in anarchy space, so there's no chance of getting sent to detention. You go, excuse me, you go outside the station and you have a big giant PvP deathmatch, right? If there's a Sidewinder in front of you, shoot at it. And then the twist is, and there's really not any other type of combat that offers this type of strategy. Every time you die and respawn, you get to upgrade or change one module. Okay, so there's a few restrictions. No seeker missiles because they're just way too deadly and too easy. No guardian modules, no power play modules, no engineered modules, no synthesis, and no landing and rearm. Okay, so you can use dumbfire missiles, for example, but I think if I remember right, either get 12 or 18 total dumbfires. So if you run out, you're out, right? You don't get to go back and land and restock. You only get to restock when you die. And so it adds this, it kind of does two things. It adds this interesting strategy of, well, what do I do first? I'll give you a hint. You do distributor first because the distro just sucks. So you got to do distro first. But do you do chaff next? Do you do shield? Do you do hull? Do you do your weapons? Right. So there's a lot of different options, and it kind of depends on what everybody's doing, right? The Sidewinder starts with gimbal pulse lasers, so chaff is usually pretty early on to to counter that. But for the guys that are new to this, right? If you've never done PvP, if you're not into combat and it's just kind of not your thing, and you think you're going to die quickly, right? Well, or you probably are. But if you die 2 or 3 times pretty quickly and I don't, well, you now have a much, much more upgraded ship than I do. So pretty quickly, it starts to self balance itself, right? That the weaker pilots have now got the stronger ships. And so all of a sudden, in about 5 or 10 minutes, you're on a pretty level playing field. Okay. And because there's not really any way to score it, we kind of jokingly at the end of a round, we run rounds for 25 minutes. We start at the top and bottom of the hour and run to 25 past. And that gives us 5 minutes for everybody to land, get in another ship because we reset to another bone stock ship and do it again. Usually for the second round, we'll let people do 2 modules at a time just because it speeds up a little bit. Because sometimes you only get maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 upgrades. So it's a little more fun if you get through and get like a really well done Sidewinder. And I personally, the Sidewinder, that's why I use it in all my logos. It is absolutely my favorite combat ship. I just love flying that thing. And so we kind of go through chat. We'll do it in Discord chat, and everybody posts in their rebuy. And the idea is whoever has the lowest rebuy, arguably made the least upgrades, and that person, quote unquote, wins. But I said in the launch video or the announced video about it, if you have fun, you win. That's the whole point behind it. And so far it's been I've done, I actually came up with this like 2 or 3 years ago. A small group of us started playing one night, and after I had the idea, I think we had 4 or 5 the first night, and I'd done it with as many as maybe 10. And the first Monday event, there was 35 of us in Discord. So I assume most everybody was in the ship, and we had some instancing issues where you'd fly outside the station, you wouldn't see anybody, you just exit the main menu real quick, come right back in, and bam, you'd be right back with everybody. So it actually went pretty smooth, and shockingly, we did the whole thing in open, both events. Nobody messed with us, right? I mean, generally I get pretty lucky when it comes to that kind of stuff. I know most of the PvPers and griefers anyway, so a lot of them just tend to leave me alone.
Well,
And we
hell,
said, hey,
most of them, if they see that you're in the system, they're gonna say, "Hold on, let me go get my Sidewinder."
yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing, right? And surely somebody at some point, I'm sure, will show up in something engineered and try to just be a jackass. And I'm just clear that, okay, look, as soon as somebody wants to make this event about them, we just all switch to private group. So please be ready with the level 11 private group. We're not going to cause any drama. If we have to switch, I'm just going to say, hey, everybody switch to level 11 private, and we'll keep going. Right, because I'm not going to feed a troll. That's what they want, right? So I'm just not going to do that, right? So yeah, it was a really fun event. I'm going to stream the first several, right? For the next, I'll certainly stream next week and maybe the week after that. But then I probably won't stream them all, and just once they get going, and just kind of let it be a standing event, and have guys in our group that'll run the events if I can't always be there, and just get it into a rhythm where the hope is it becomes something that's just, it's just the community just knows about it, right? You want to go do Sidewinder Slaughter? It's these times on these days at this station.
And
You,
for those who, go ahead.
that is like the classic example with Elite where it's such a great sandbox kind of game, but yeah, there's things to do in it, but you end up having more fun when you kind of create your own fun.
I
And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
that's the thing that I love about this game, and I hate about this game.
I couldn't
Sometimes it's
agree
hard.
more on both. Yeah.
So that's sort of the key of the entire sort of thought process of the Hutton truckers, Hutton Orbital, is they champion a thing called PWP, where it's player with player. And I know that in this case, in Sidewinder Slaughter, it's PvP, but it's not. I mean, you're not really fighting it. You're just
Right.
out there for laughs with each other. I consider this to be, oddly enough, PWP, that it just happens to be PvP.
Yeah.
And
I
for
think
those
that's very fair. Sure.
and for those who have not sort of experienced this, there is the big one that you can do on the weekly schedule. But also, if you check whenever Exegius does his streams, when he ends it, either we all go into CQC or into a little Sidewinder Slaughter quite often. So you can jump in and enjoy the fun with a smaller group, or you can jump into the deep end with the big group. Either
I
way.
feel like
Yeah,
it'd be
that's true. We've always kind of by tradition. I don't think I've ever done a stream that be like a special, like when the updates launched and things like that. But the scheduled streams, I don't know that we've ever done one that we didn't end with CQC. I don't always stream it, or I'll stream like one match because I honestly I hate combat not in VR, but I'm not going to stream VR just because nobody wants to watch shaky cam VR while I'm playing. But like for me, then it's fun to jump into VR and actually get to play a bit with guys. And I always tell people at the end of the streams that okay, so CQC is that thing on the menu called Arena that you've probably never clicked on, and your friends have probably told you it's stupid and lame, and they're wrong. It's fucking awesome. What's bad about CQC is you can't get a match,
Yep.
right? And but because we've got 8, 10, 14, whatever it is, people in the Discord that are all going to play. Absolutely, you're going to get a match. Well, sometimes you don't still, but you have obviously a much higher percentage chance. And so far, we've always had very good luck with it. And we usually do team deathmatch. And again, like you said, it's all just for fun. And the comments are consistently, wow, this is awesome. Why don't people do this more? And like, why? And it's sad because, as we know, Frontier is just let it languish. I say all the time, why is CQC not on the mission board? Right? Why don't we take missions to go fight in a CQC tournament? And if there's not enough commanders there, well, you know what? The game already has NPCs that are like bots. Just throw NPCs in and let me fight against NPCs. It's just such a shame that feature is effectively had nothing done to it in 4 years, 5 years,
I
somewhere
couldn't
around there.
agree
whatever it
more.
is.
I couldn't agree more. Like,
Or for that matter, like why can't we queue up for a CQC match while we're in game, and then like
Sure.
when it spawns, give us a 2 minutes
it's
to get
ready.
to safety. Like come out of Super Cruise, go to a complete stop. All right, now I'm in CQC.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean
I completely agree.
yeah
kind of like just a throwback what you've talked to, Ty, about like the WoW Battlegrounds. You
Yeah.
can queue for Battlegrounds while you're out questing.
yeah. And they could expand on CQC too. They could have, for our holiday event, we had a Sidewinders versus
The Corvette.
yeah, the Corvette, and I was flying the Corvette.
Okay.
And everybody, you could deck out the Sidewinder however you wanted, and we just had a lot of fun that night. And it was, they could do things where it's like, all right, so one person's in the great big tank Anaconda, and everyone else is in a fighter, and it's 8 versus 1 or something. There's a bunch of things they could do.
You just gave me.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
just gave me a great idea. Oh, you're good. You just gave me a great idea for I've tried to think of something to do for specifically like the Patreons and members, right? And you just gave me the idea, which is to get like a hugely mega jewel stacked vet or a cutter and just say, bring any small class ship you want and everybody have at me, right? And
Yeah.
see how long it takes to kill me. I love that idea, right? That would be a blast.
I think Ty's biggest mistake during our holiday event, because I was on the Sidewinder team. And obviously we won because there was a lot more of us outnumbering him. But
of course.
I feel like if he would have taken his Corvette at any given moment and just decided to bowl through us, he probably would have taken half of us out.
Yeah. Ty, were you shooting back during that? Were you firing back?
Yeah.
I'm going to be
okay, good.
completely honest. All right, so I was taking it easy because I'm trying to attract listeners, and I didn't want everybody to have
Of course.
Yeah, so everybody who thinks that they got it one up on me, we'll do it again next year, and I will own everybody. Okay.
I called it. I called it at the time. Everybody's like, "Yeah, we beat him." I'm like, "You realize? Did you not see him? He was targeting people taking out their shields, taking their hull down to 30%, and then changing targets. Did you not notice that? That's
Yeah.
you know,
How
it's
many
obviously
guys did you have on you?
I think it was 12 or 15 versus
Jesus,
1,
yeah,
something
we
like
had-
that.
Okay.
I want to say about we had about 13, I think, total.
Okay, that's pretty decent. That's that would be a tough fight regardless. I've beaten a few, and I say beaten. I've never killed a cutter or a vet with my Sidewinder, but I've beaten several in terms of just like almost dropped their shields and made them run. Because I tell you, man, there is something about the enforcer cannon specifically. For those that don't know, it's the power play small fixed multi cannon that I swear to God that thing is better than the sum of its parts. That little weapon with incendiary will just melt through shields and hull, and I love it. Right, it's got a really slow rate of fire. It almost fires like the big cannon too, right, like the large one does. And yeah, big fan of that. I've definitely beaten a lot of meat Sidewinder. I've beaten python, as in killed. I've killed a couple pythons. In fact, the very first video I ever posted to the channel, I didn't narrate it even. It just has like text about the story. Was again because I love pirating. I pirated a guy in a cutter with my Cobra.
yeah.
And he stops. Great. I sent it because and if you're gonna pirate, if anybody's getting into it, and it's a series that I've wanted to do videos too that I haven't yet, is you want to have something set up to send messages, right? You do not want to have to sit there and type to them, right? So I send him my demands, please do a full stop and drop 2 tons of cargo. And he stops. Great. I'm thinking, okay, this will be an easy one. We'll just get to chat. And he sits there for a second and I'm waiting. And I've just got in point blank with my weapons. And I'm running a Sidewinder with a single mine launcher and a long range burst laser with scramble spectrum. And that's one that does, it causes malfunctions when it hits hull. And that's all I've got, right? And he sits there for a second. And the next thing he says to me, I think this was the one, is, "You sure you want to do this?" And I just replied back, "Giddy up." And so I start flying backwards. And of course, like I could tell, like he was a new guy. I don't remember what his rank was, but he certainly wasn't elite. I start flying backwards and I start laying mines right in front of him. And I'm using reverb cascade mines. And for those that don't know, those attack the shield generator module. So they don't do much shield damage. But if you look at the generator, the integrity of it is dropping rapidly. So he comes plowing through this carpet of mines that is in front of him. And he's looking down and, well, that's not scratching my shields, right? And screw this little Cobra. So he keeps shooting at me, right? And we do 2 passes of that. On the second pass, his shields go from 95% to off in an instant. And there's just something so fulfilling about that, so satisfying. Well, when they dropped, he still had a carpet of mines in front of him that he then plowed through, and you literally can see his hull like 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, right? And so then he turns and decides he's going to run, right? And oh, I'm sorry, I was in the Cobra, so I had 2 mine launchers. Forgive me. I had the reverb ion and I had an ion launcher. And ion disruption will bring your ship to a stop. So usually with a new player, when that happens, they start freaking out. They start boost. They're getting ready to boost. They're like, why can't I move? Why can't I move? So as soon as they come free, they boost and then they just plow through everything again, right? So he turns and runs, and I'm firing at him with my scramble spectrum laser, which is now causing malfunctions, and I have a Grom bomb. For those that don't know, that's the FSD interrupt missile. So if you're charging to jump and you get hit by it, your FSD reboots. So it means it's 40 seconds until you can jump again. So he runs, starts to charge, and bam, I hit him with the Grom bomb, stops his jump. He panics again and thinks, well, shit, I guess I'm going to have to fight. Turns to fight me again. I lay a carpet in front of him, and the next pass he comes plowing through it and dead, right, and explodes. And the best part of the whole thing was right after it. And whenever I pirate somebody, regardless of how it goes, I send them a friend request, right? And my hope is, and I've made I've made 24 friends this way over the years. And the first message he sent me, I think I sent him something, and I might mind a tiny bit of salt. I think I said something like, "Sure would have been easier to just give me the 2 tons, wouldn't it?"
Well,
Right?
to be fair though, to be accurate, because I've seen that video, he did actually drop the 2 tons, but then he decided, what the hell is this Cobra doing, and decided he was going to farm you.
I'm sorry, you're right. I'm confusing it a little bit with there was a Python that I did once in my Sidewinder that was very similar. That's right. He did decide, what the hell? And so the first thing that he sent me in chat was, "How the hell did you do that? And will you teach me?" And to me, That is the absolute right attitude to have. You know, so many people get so salty when they get killed in this game, right? And I get it that you're a trader, you're an explorer, and some guy just grabs you and just blows you up instantly. And that's not fun for, I mean, to me at all, right? That's why I like the piracy. I'm not going to kill you unless you either curse me, completely ignore me, or shoot at me. Right. Other than that, if you stop and we chit chat, great. That's again, I like that human connection. And so when he sent me that and said, you know, will you teach me this? I must have chatted with him in game for a half an hour, right? And this was well before, like I said, before I had the channel even. And I made a friend of him. He couldn't have been nicer about it, and confirmed for me that absolutely he was like, screw this little cobra, I'm in a damn cutter, right? And I don't remember if it was E-rated. It certainly wasn't engineered, and he had quite literally just unlocked it, and maybe that was even his first flight in it or something like that. Like he was very, very new to it. And it was just the, you know, he didn't understand the game. He had no idea the efficacy and how powerful mines can be, and how unbelievably powerful the cobra can be in a situation like that. You know, it's 600 meters a second. I'm flying rings around him, and and he just didn't get it, and he met the rebuy screen because of it. So, but he had a great attitude about it, which is why I made that video, because it was just fun all the way around.
Yeah.
For real.
Well,
God.
let me shift gears here real quick, because I want to ask you the
Yeah,
same
sure.
two questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. Okay. First one is about fleet carriers.
Okay.
Are you even interested in them, or what do you think they'll bring us?
Yes and no. I mean, so the short answer is yes. I'm like everybody. I'm clamoring for new content. So period. When it comes down to what do I think they'll bring us, I kind of maybe hinted this at the top of the hour. I was chatting with I don't know if you guys know Dig That 32, the
Mhm.
creator. Do you guys know him yet? Yeah. Okay. I was chatting with
Oh,
him
yeah.
about fleet carriers, and specifically about space legs. And I don't really enjoy theory crafting or speculation, because it always sets us up for disappointment. Because one of the big problems with the league is, I think, where we all get frustrated, is we see so much potential in the game that bluntly is squandered. Right? Imagine if tomorrow was your first day at Frontier. Imagine the things that would be on your list to add to the game. I know my list would be enormous.
Oh
Okay.
God, there goes the existential anxiety. Thank you.
Exactly, right? And so I try not to get too much into it. I use the example I use all the time is multi-crew. You know, 3 almost whatever it was years ago. I remember the day multi-crew came out, and when we all realized you can't mix wings and crew, you can't multi-crew the SRV, and your crew can't fly your ship. All of those were, are you kidding me? And specifically the mixing wings and crew, it makes it completely worthless. Every single, I shouldn't say it that way. 95% of the time I've wanted to use multi-crew, it's usually if I'm hunting Thargoids or doing some other form of combat. There's a buddy that's new, that's doesn't have a capable ship, is halfway across the galaxy, whatever it might be, and I would love to have them jump in my fighter. We talked about the Guardian fighters briefly. Those kind of suck. The shields on them are pathetic, and they're terrible for human combat, but they're a ton of fun to fly. In VR, the cockpits are just fantastic.
Agreed.
And yeah, aren't they? And so I would love to say, hey, multi-crew with me, because we're Thargoid hunting right now, but that means I've got to break wing. And so, yeah, you can drop in on an instance if you're in Super Cruise at the same time, and if you see their low wake, and it's a lot harder to drop on a low wake than a wing signal. So the fact that we can't mix those two effectively makes multi-crew worthless. Right. And so I remember, and I was much more a defender of Frontier back in the day. When people would trash Frontier, I was always the guy, well, give them some slack. The game's still pretty new. It's going to have a long time to go. They'll get there. Absolutely. I know they'll add these things. And here we are 3 years later, and multi-crew hasn't been touched. Right. CQC hasn't been touched. Right. I mean, the simple thing, like I don't know if you've ever done this, you go into CQC and you can create a squad of 4 players, right? So that you can put your team together. That's the idea anyway, to fight another team. When you go to the squad list, you go through your friends list. It's not sorted in any way that I can find other than random. It's not by last login date. It's not by when you friended them. It's not by online status. And I've got something like 800 to 900 friends on my friends list. So to scroll through to find the 3 guys that I want to invite to CQC is a nightmare. It would take 2 or 3 words in a query, order by online state. That's it. Right?
Or
Just
you
take all
just
the
type
guys that
in
are
search
online.
engine.
Exactly. It would be so simple to add something like that. And nope, I've always been convinced Frontier checks something off a list. Yep, we've got CQC done, and that's it. It's, it's just they don't ever come back to it, right? And multi-crew is such a perfect example. So that's kind of my side story of saying I don't really like this because so I try not to let myself go down this path. Now, to answer your question though, I'm the one thing that I know. Oh God! And see, here's the thing: I don't even know that we're going to get this, so I can't even say that. It seems that if we have the ability to jump our ships on demand, and that's again a question we don't even know, right? Are they going to jump at a tick? Are they going to jump once a night, once a week? Can we just get in them and jump whenever we want? If we can get in them and jump whenever we want, and if they can't do that, I'm going to say they're useless. There's a few other things that could make them useless, but I think that would be a big one. If I can get it in on demand and I can store 16 ships in it, because I think that was the number that's been thrown around.
Yes, sir.
8 large, yeah, okay, 8 large, 8 medium, or 4 medium, 4 small pads, something like that.
Correct.
If I can have 16 ships on it that I can essentially bring wherever I want on demand in a reasonable amount of time via jumping, that's pretty great, right? If I can have my fleet with me and I can jump down to the Pleiades with it, and I've got, as many ships as I want to do whatever I want, or I want to jump up to Shinrarta with and bring my PvP ships with, because right now I leave ships at Shinrarta, I leave ships at Santu, which is where the PvP stuff happens. I have the bulk of my fleet and my player faction's home system of Gleese, right? And so I'm constantly having, oh God, what's a shit? I wanted to use the Vulture, but it's down in Gleese and it's 45 minutes away, right? And I'll admit, kick me if you want, but I voted for the time delay on ship transfer because I wish it wasn't as long as it is, but I felt that an instant ship transfer would effectively negate jump drives, right? Because we would all jump around in DBXs and then ship our ships everywhere, and jumping wouldn't matter. And maybe that's good, but that's a whole nother topic. So if we can bring our fleets with us quickly like that, that sounds pretty cool, right? Now, if you think about what features it needs to have, the two features that I'm most interested in are, the first one would be, is it going to have a mission board on it? And if so, is that mission board going to have the same in-system factions for BGS? Because now, and I don't know if this is good or bad, right? I know a fair bit about BGS, but I am not a BGS expert. When you do BGS and you expand into a system, a lot of the systems you expand into are going to have, a small station. They're going to have maybe only a planetary station with shitty outfitting, no shipyard, and that adds a challenge. It's kind of part of the challenge of BGS and how you do things. Well, now if I can jump in my fleet carrier with 16 ships and do whatever the hell I want, and that's going to dramatically change the way BGS is done, right? And the way that we move around. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I just worry that that's such a big change. If it doesn't have a mission board, well, those of us that do BGS or just random players that use the mission board, well, now I'm going to have to go to the station to use the mission board. Well, I'm not going to be jumping back and forth. I just keep my ships at the station at that point, right? So that's big question number one. And question number two for me is, if we talk about space legs, or whenever a feature like this comes up, where's the gameplay, right? I want gameplay around upgrading my fleet carrier. So I want to have some ability, whether it's via missions, some sort of gathering. Missions to me would seem the most, something like the way the ranks work, that I can work to upgrade the systems on my ship, right? Like, I'm going to make this up for a second. Let's say that it comes with outfitting and it's only got E-rated modules. And I work through a series of whatever, right? And I don't even care if these are necessarily hard, that I can work up to having all A-rated modules. I can work up to having an interstellar factor or a material trader or a guardian or human tech broker. And I can build out my carrier to have those services via gameplay, right? I want to be able to build a mobile Jameson Memorial when it comes down to it, right? And I seriously doubt we will get that, right?
Yeah.
It
So what
seems.
we
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
know so far about the carriers, first off, with regard to your first point on how is the travel for them going to work? Is it on the tick? Is it once a week? Is it whatever? They have indicated that it is, you can schedule it. A commander can schedule a jump at any time. It's not just on the
Okay.
tick. It's not once a day. It's not whatever. And in fact, I think I correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember at one point reading something along the lines of there's a several minute delay, so you can make multiple jumps, but you just need a couple minutes cooldown to
Like a cool
respool the
down, sure,
drive,
Yeah.
sure,
to
sure.
respool the jump drive. We know that there's a jump range of 500 light years,
Okay.
but that
Yep.
doesn't mean that there's a total jump range of that. That means that one jump is that.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
if I'm in a ship that's got a 60 light year jump range, but a tank that holds 380 light years worth of jumps, that if you extrapolate out a similar thing, which we do not have any reason to know that there is or is not yet with the carriers,
Right.
but I'm just saying, if you
Right. Right.
extrapolate that, a 500 light year jump range for one jump might be a jump ship with a total of 3,000 light years in the tank, and then you have to refill with this specific jump fuel that they
Yeah.
said is going
Yeah.
to be a
They've talked
different
about.
type of fuel.
Yep. 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 Something
So
else
with
we'll have to
regard
grind for.
with regard to the modules with on the carrier itself, I believe, I don't really know that we're going to get any of that upgradability. I know that we're going to get we're going to get variability in the types of ship, in that
Right.
they said there's going to be one for
Like
there's
mining, exploration,
mercenary.
combat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a search and rescue one, which,
Yep. Saw that.
okay, and there's exploration, mining, trading, all of that. So I think that the variability of the services provided on the ship is going to be more based on that, on what type of ship
And I bet you're
it
right.
is.
Yep. And I bet my gut says, and I think just to be clear, you hit a key thing there, which is I don't remember exactly what word you used, but it was basically, we think this could be, or it might be, or it probably would be. And kind of the biggest advice I give players is don't get excited about a feature until Frontier has said this is absolutely how it will work. Because if you make an assumption, I mean, again, I go back to multi crew. We never would have dreamed that you wouldn't be able to mix wings and crew. I mean, nobody even remotely, or share the SRV on planets. Nobody even considered that that wouldn't be a feature.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I try, and I think a lot of disappointment gets built into people because they expect these things. That, in fairness to Frontier, Frontier's never said that's what we were going to get. We make some kind of, well, obviously this is what we would want, and those things are not obvious to Frontier. Not to bash on Frontier this whole time, but I think a main problem is they don't play the game like we do, right? They don't live in the game like we do.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of why these things tend to languish like that, right? So I fear that, to your point, if you buy the mining ship, right, if that's the one you get, that it'll have maybe it has all the mining modules, right, and it has all the mining outfitting stuff, and it's skinned a different way, and that's it, right? And one of the things, another thing I didn't mention that I think I have a lot of questions about is how will other commanders see your carrier, right? Obviously, they're not going to all just show up in an instance because there's not going to be 10,000 fleet carriers in Shinrarta right off
They
the bat,
have they
right?
have said that it will be limited to one carrier per instance.
Right. But what I more mean is that's per instance, but what about per system? So it's
Yeah.
not like I'm going to jump into a system, look on my left panel and see 10,000 fleet carriers that I can go drop into, right? So this is where my gut says the way I would do it is I would kind of like a group, I would request access to your fleet carrier, and once you granted that, then it would show in my navigation panel where I could drop at. Because what I'm going to find interesting, and the commanders are going to do this, is assuming you can kind of share your fleet carrier in a relatively easy way, right? Let's assume it's as easy as private groups are. We can now populate the galaxy with stations,
Right.
right? Imagine who's going to be the first person to run a fleet carrier to to Sag A or to Beagle Point,
Beagle Point,
right?
yeah.
People are going to be rushing to get there, right? The exploration guys. And now to think about the fact that we would have, like with the Road to Riches out to Colonia, when that first was set up with neutron jumps, imagine people setting up a series of ships that are on the way out to Beagle Point or on the way to Sag A, right? And now you've got all these safe harbors along the way, and that opens up a lot of fuel rat style gameplay, right, where commanders can build that out. And to me, that's very potentially very exciting.
See, the one problem that I have with that is that you're kind of taking away some of the dangerous away from the galaxy. And when we had the pilot on a few months ago, uh, he brought up a very interesting theory, and it'd be a great way to shake things up, but we don't think they're going to do it. And it would basically mean that they burn the bubble. And the idea being that most of the stations, most of the installations are gone because when they put out the 2020 update, we're pretty sure they're going to get, base building. We will probably already have fleet carriers by then, and we'll be able to walk around. And there's that whole thing, the render of the Thargoid that was leaked, which is pretty sure that's going to be running around shooting people or shooting Thargoids. So the theory is that if Thargoid Mothership comes in and effectively burns the bubble, takes down the majority of the stations and installations in the bubble, well then our bases and our fleet carriers could repopulate it, and that would be a very interesting galaxy to live in.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah, and we haven't gotten to space legs and that kind of content, right? And I think that all of that is certainly all possible. I'm one of the guys that I have next to zero interest in space legs. What I love about Elite is the thing that it's good at and unique for, which is flying a spaceship in the galaxy. Right, the flight model, the mechanics of the ship, the engineering possibilities, the way the systems just different work. I'm sure you guys and given the view count on it, damn near everybody's seen Up Is Not Jumps. Elite Dangerous is whatever it is terrifying or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Elite in VR.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, Elite in VR is terrifying or he does a
Is a
series
nightmare.
like that is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's exactly what it is a nightmare. And one of the things he points out in that video is if you want to feel like you are learning a skill, right, and you are learning to pilot a ship, that's what Elite is. Right. And I couldn't agree more. Right. The depth of the systems, how well the flight model is. And we can argue Newtonian physics and, why do you slow down when you're in normal space and things like that. Right. And those are all there for gameplay reasons. But the actual flight of being in a ship, I joke that with VR, like if you're playing on a 2D monitor, even with HOTAS controls, right, you're playing a very cool, very realistic space video game. Right. If you're
Right.
flying with HOTAS controls in VR, you're flying a fucking spaceship. Right. It is that big. It is that immersive and can be that deep. Right. And I sadly have little confidence in Frontier's ability to build a first person shooter.
I'm right there with you. I really am.
Right. Now, if I can snap my fingers and get that and it's done well, and okay, sure. Why would I say no to that? But that's not what Frontier is good at, right? They've never built a first person shooter, right? They've never built that sort of combat. When people say, oh, I want space legs, I want to walk around my ship, walking around is not gameplay.
Right.
I've walked around my ship. I've gotten up out of my seat in VR and walked around, and yeah, okay. That was like, in fact, something I tell everybody should do in VR is get a Type 9, use a docking computer, and as soon as you request docking, get up out of your seat and stand next to it. The
Yeah.
immersion of that, feeling like you're standing on the bridge of this big ship, watching it come into port is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's fun once, right? Do I want them to spend the thousands of hours it's going to take to model all the stations and add that into the engine and give us things to do to walk around? No. Do I want people say, oh, well, you could walk up to the mission giver, or you could walk up to the material trader. Really? You want those things to take longer? I don't.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll do you one better. Let's assume for a moment that Frontier Development can make the most amazing shooter in the history of time. I still don't want it. I'm playing on a HOTAS and I'm playing a space sim game. I do not want reskinned Fortnite with Thargoids. Please, God, do not. If I wanted to play Call of Duty, I'd be playing that.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. Now, I will say, being fair, the one game that I've played that has space legs and VR is No Man's Sky. And while I don't enjoy, I consider No Man's Sky a survival game, right? I mean,
Agreed.
that's essentially what it is. And if No Man's Sky had anywhere close to the flight mechanics, if it had any flight mechanics, and if you could, Buddy said it perfectly today. If I could take my FDL and plop it in No Man's Sky, I'm done. That would be fucking fantastic, right? Because I personally like the art style of No Man's Sky, the base building and the crafting and all of the planetary gameplay, walking around the different biomes, the diversity of things. There's a ton there. And I think they should be unbelievably commended for what they've done in the last 3 years in the face of I, the most hate the internet's ever given a game launch. I mean, easily, literally death threats. So if Elite has something like that, okay, right? That's interesting. Do I have confidence that Frontier can deliver that? Not even remotely, right? And I really don't mean to keep shitting on Frontier because I think they've done like what they have done phenomenally is the flight model and is the mechanics and is the ability to go visit every freaking star in the Milky Way galaxy. I know when the game launched, I think this has since changed, but it was the first time humanity had ever one-to-one simulated the entire galaxy.
I'm
And
pretty sure you're right about that. Yeah.
yeah, and when you think about that, that's a pretty damn impressive achievement, right? Another random was you guys know about Trappist One, right? The
Yes,
system that was
sir. Yes, sir.
discovered.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so now not only does the game have Trappist One, but before it had it, the system in the game auto-generated where Trappist One is was damn near exactly what Trappist One turned out to be. Now,
It was like a light year off, and they had two
exactly,
planets. Like their distance
exactly.
was wrong or something. It was really
Yep, yep.
close. Yeah.
Yep. And while, you could absolutely chalk that up to random luck, I mean, with as much stuff as in the game, it might have just happened. But the fact that the generation engine behind the way the galaxy generates is so scientifically accurate, right? That's what Frontier does phenomenally,
Mm-hmm.
right? Does any of that translate to me running around with Call of Duty in space on a planetary base?
None.
Yeah, no.
Not to me, it doesn't, right? I want I want atmospheric planets, right? I want greenery. I want, flora and fauna to drive around on and explore and fly over and through, right? That's to me what is far more interesting than just walking around.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, does anybody have anything else to ask Commander Exidius this evening?
I think we have had the most extensive content creators corner interview ever, and we gotta get transitioning to the rest of the show.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
can I just take a
Sure.
minute to thank him for making the videos that he's made? Because when I came back into Elite, it was literally your videos that taught me and my friends how to core mine.
Okay,
And
good.
then
Good.
also your video on getting the Guardian FSD booster, also with the help of Ty. I have a Guardian FSD booster.
That's great. That's great. No,
So,
you're very welcome, right? I say this all the time, especially when I get a new Patreon. It might sound completely cheesy to say that comments like that are absolutely why I do this, but it is, right?
Yeah.
Just, like I was really lucky, like I think a lot of us, when I first started playing, a couple of guys, I got a shout out to Commander Boffin. He doesn't even play anymore, but Commander Boffin took me under his wing and taught me the game, right? He spent so many hours with me those early hours, and that was back when it took me 3 weeks of 8 hours a day to earn my first vulture, right? Because pay was you'd maybe make 600,000, 700,000, maybe 1 million credits a day back then. And he just took me in his wing, taught me the whole thing. I've done various teaching and stuff my whole life, so I've always enjoyed that, and I always wanted to pay that back, right? So
Hell yeah.
knowing that I've been able to help commanders get into the game or get more out of the game, it really does make it all worth it.
Well, thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
I think that's about it we got for you. We're going to go ahead and we're going to transition to do our normal segments. You're welcome to stick around, and feel free to comment in on things. If there's any,
Sure.
if you need to run out and go ahead and do your thing, no big deal. But
I think I might just take a quick break and go grab something to drink if that's cool. But yeah, you guys do your thing. I'll keep quiet, and I've been yakking for the last hour and a half, so I'll try to let you guys run the show from here on out and just chime in if you guys have a question. But yeah, no, I'd love to stick around.
Great.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, dude.
Let me just say thank you very much for everything you do, and man, I can't thank you enough for joining us this evening.
You guys are welcome. I'm glad we did this. Yeah.
this has been one of my favorite interviews that I've done,
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, I hope you come back and we'll go from there. So
I would love to, and you know, just to end up, I thank you guys for having me. This was definitely a blast. I'll admit that earlier today I was looking at the schedule and just I've been kind of burning the candle at both ends because of the site launch, and I was like, oh god, okay, yeah, got to do that tonight. I'm so damn tired. And then as soon as we got started, like I looked over and I was like, oh shit, it's like 10:45. How the hell did it get this late? Because you know, it doesn't even. It seems like we started talking 5 minutes ago. So no, this has been an absolute blast. I appreciate you guys having me.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So I have a quick. I want to go through our quick shout outs for this week, and I have a special one here.
Well, I was gonna say, do you want me to start because we have we have the special one, so that way the Twitter stuff doesn't
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't come after that.
yeah. That's a good point. Go ahead and do the Twitter ones, bro.
All right, so for those of you that follow us, our Twitter handle is at LooseCruiseED. You can find myself at Draven013. You can find Ty at Tiervol, and you can find Kai at Kai, and I don't have his numbers on here. I'll let him shout them out.
KAI 19103.
Thank you, sir. And for this week, we want to thank our newest followers of Kyler Christian 3, Axonis 89, Gavd Cook 20, and Commander G Boss. Thank you guys so much for following us, and we look forward to being able to hear from you and interact with you on the Twitter side of things.
So I'm not gonna go into a whole lot of detail, but one of our commanders, Subsonic Slug, he let me be aware that uh, his friend is in the hospital right now, and just want to let him know that we're thinking about him and hope everything's gonna be all right. Hope,
Thoughts and prayers, man.
yeah, I hope, man. This is what I'll say real quick, and then we're gonna move forward. You got friends online. If you need something, holler at us. I don't know what we can do, but like I said, holler at us and we can figure something out. So,
For sure, man.
um, one other thing is, so starting tonight, we have an audio engineer in the course of JN Tracks, and Tracks does his own podcast. It's done every other week. It's about audio stuff. I've started listening to it. Some of it is way over my head because I don't understand it, but I am learning. So he is a great audio engineer by trade, and he's going to be mixing our shows going forward. So I want to say thank you to Trax, and you can find his show at tonecontrolshow.com, and we'll have that link in the show notes, of course.
Well, I was also going to ask Ty, didn't he write our theme song too?
Yes, he did. He sure. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, this week we had Mr. Will Flanagan join. I said his name wrong. Mr. Will Flacco again.
Dude, I'm pretty sure like that was because of the level of excitement because I saw his name pop into our Discord and it was just like, oh my god, we got Will Flanagan.
Yeah, we are officially serious, and I know Kai has been working our community contacts very well. Thank you, Kai, for doing that because I
God,
do
dude,
not have the outgoing
enough.
personality to do that. So,
My pleasure, brother.
Dude, thank you so much, Kai.
so one last thing is I have set up a squadron in game, and you don't have to leave your own squadron and come join ours or anything like that. We're not setting up a BGS or nothing, but it was pointed out to me that a lot of people do not have a squadron, and or they're in a squadron and they don't really participate, or they don't really know anybody. Come on over to our squadron. Almost every night, we're doing something. Last night we tried to go ganking the gankers, but we couldn't find any gankers to gank, so we ended up farming a Hazres for like 2.5 hours or something.
Yo, bro, I heard you like ganks in your gank, so we ganked your gank while you ganked.
And this is why I don't let you talk.
I'm sorry.
No. So I had so let me go around the horn real quick. What have you guys been up to in the game this week? Kai?
Well, this week I finished a project of getting every last material in the game to full.
Nice.
And that was crazy time. And I don't think I'm going to have to do that again for a long, long time.
I was trying to launch in the game to join you up on stream while you were doing the the things, and my game just it didn't connect, but then when I closed it out, it just didn't want to launch. So I've got to now troubleshoot for that.
I think
Awesome.
you might need to run the update thing on Steam.
You will have to talk to me about that so we
Okay.
don't continue to interrupt the stream. But let's continue forward.
So, I think it was Sunday evening, I think. Wait, no, it was Monday evening. So Monday evening, I go to bed. Now, everybody here knows that I've been a fairly big Raxla hunter, and for about the better part of a year. And I've always interpreted the Raxla toast one specific way. And I was laying in bed, and for whatever reason, it popped in my head, because that's what I do. I lay in bed for hours on hours and think about crap. And it popped in my head, and I thought of a completely different way to interpret it. So Tuesday morning, I was off because I was waiting for my wonderful, wonderful secret lab chair to arrive. And I decided to, well, you know what? Let's break out the stuff and let's go Raxel hunting. So I took the new way to interpret it, which the old way to interpret it was you had to do, oh gosh, how did it go? You had to go to Maya, and then you had to jump to this other place. But I had the idea about the phrase of the jewel upon her brow was referring to the star in Cassiopeia, where her hand is upon her brow, and that is Rukba. So I decided to go to Rukba and follow what I thought was the correct interpretation of the turns in the system, because I've always believed that Raxla is, you know, you have to fly out a certain way, just like the old Voyagers. You had to fly a certain way for so long, and then make a turn, and fly that way for so long, and make another turn. You had to triangulate the position. So I went and did that for 6.5 hours, and guess what? I found I did not find Raxel at all. So um, the other thing I did was last night is that I decided to PvP dubs in my Crate Mark II, and realized that I still do not know what the hell I'm doing in PvP. So I decided I went and bought a Fertilance, and I'm actually in it right now, and I'm kicking around what I need to do to engineer it. So it's been a busy week for me doing a bunch of different things. So
Well, okay. So with regard to your hunt for Raxla, I'm going to just remind you what I told you the other day, that it's like that old episode of Babylon 5 where the guy comes through and he's seeking the Grail, and all the Membari come to give him respects or whatever, and they basically say that even if you're hunting for a myth, or even if you're hunting for something with no realistic expectation of being able to find it, it's the searching, it's the experiences that you go through, it's the taking your paint job down to nothing on the way, that you had a story, you had a whole adventure, you were, for hours you were excited. It's like buying a lottery ticket. Yeah, you're not going to win, but for those couple hours while you're thinking about it and dreaming about it, it gives you some interesting, I don't know, gives
So
you a little juice.
to simplify that, it's not the journey, it's the destination. No, it's not the destination. Wow. I'm an
Oh,
asshole.
Jesus.
oh
was
man,
great.
that's perfect. That was
Keep that.
perfect.
Keep that.
That was beautiful.
Oh
All
Jesus
right.
man.
Christ, I messed that up
Well,
so bad.
I mean, I did get to do something. I did get to finish the Curse of Oak Island season 6 that was on Hulu, so I was appreciative of that. Guess what? They still haven't found gold on the island. So,
Just
spoiler
like you still
alert.
haven't met Raxler.
Spoiler
Hey!
alert.
They're gonna find the bars and they're gonna say Raxlaw on the side.
No.
Oh my god, that would be the biggest M. Night Shyamalan twist ever.
So,
All right.
so news from this week. There's not a whole lot. We did have a patch on Tuesday, but I want to talk about mining real quick, because I've gotten some messages about mining. Our Discord's kind of been lit up about mining. Astro from Down to Earth Astronomy did a whole live stream about mining, and I think how did it work? Was it a live stream or just a video? I can't remember now. Anyway, he
So
did something about mining. So
Yeah, he did a stream on it. He talked about it a little bit on Hello Dave on Monday, and
Yeah.
then he did a stream on it on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So has anybody gotten to do much mining? Do we know how this works yet? Do we know if it works yet?
So I haven't been mining myself because I did all of my mining. I'm done with that. I don't need to go out and crack rocks with the peasants, but I can tell you from I've still kept my ear to the ground and been kind of looking into all of this. We broke the story last week of
Mm-hmm.
the change that was not discussed anywhere in the patch notes, which was that it's not only dependent on the supply and demand system, but also by how much you have on you. So that if you show up, if you and I show up to the same system, and you have 500 tons of painite on you, and I have 100 tons of painite, they're literally going to offer me over a third more than what they're offering you, just because of a change that was made, that was on the back end, that is not even tied directly to the supply and demand. So also, I mean, Exegius, I know you've done some research into this. You were doing it on the day of. How about you tell us some of the things that you've noticed with it?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying personally done next to no mining since it came out. I kind of like you said a second ago, I got all of my mining done a while back. I went and painite mined my way to 15 billion credits, so that truly I never, ever, ever would have to worry about credits again. I just figured, you know what, I'm just gonna power through this. I wound up like playing poker with friends and watching movies and just power through it. Right now, that said, I from what we know, and Commander Smoke, our community manager who's with Galactic Academy, had done a whole lot of research into it too. Obsidian has a really good
Mm,
video on it as well, kind of explaining what we believe to have happened. And there's two key things as I understand it. The main thing is it's much more based upon supply and demand, but in a much more galaxy wide way now. Okay, so the result of which is if everybody's mining void opals, which that's what everybody was doing, and everybody's selling void opals, there's no longer a fixed price to void opals where somewhere in the galaxy you're going to get 1.6 million for it. The
Right.
supply and demand is now galaxy wide. So when void opals get sold everywhere, they're going to crash, right? And the prices of them are going to drop everywhere. So that results in the way to then make money with mining, right? If we kind of cut to the chase, is by looking at what's in the most demand and has the least supply and looking at the different commodities and seeing which one at the moment is the most valuable, right? You can literally just go, in fact, I'll check right now. You can go to the EDDB.io commodities tab, sort that by the highest sell price, and right now low temp diamonds are paying 1.16 million is the highest. So
which
hey, go ahead. Yeah.
just a real quick
Yeah.
sidebar on
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
No, please.
That has been theorized by many, myself, Down to Earth. I think even Ant had a comment on it.
Yep. Yep.
It's been theorized that that may be not intended. That may be that possibly the change that they made that applied to everything else did not properly apply to the LTDs, because Paynite, LTDs, and Void Opals were the holy trinity for making money.
That's
Paynite
right.
got
That's
hit
right.
into the dirt, Void Opals got hit into the dirt, and LTDs, they were untouched, then they dipped, then they went back up. So we're wait and see on
Yeah.
that before you plan
and
on
and
that
that's
as a
fair.
long-term thing.
And that's fair. And what I'm getting at is I don't think there is anything that's long term at this point. What you're effectively going to do is if you're going to go have a mining session, you're going to check the commodities, you're going to see what's paying the most, and then that's what you're going to go get.
Hmm.
Now, the nerf part of it, which I think I find it's a shame that it's getting and spun as a nerf is not really fair, because I mean ultimately as a nerf we're making less money. We're still making great money. That's the thing that people are kind of not understanding, that yes, we're making less than we were, but it's still, you could still make 100 million credits an hour doing deep core and laser mining.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, for example, the next highest thing is Bennetwite, however you say that, and it's paying 959, so almost right at a million. So that would be, if you're right about low tip diamonds, and you very easily could be, to second that comment is I'm not convinced any of it is working as they intend yet.
I
right?
agree.
I mean, they've been completely silent on it. In fact, I've wanted to ping Will and see, hey, is there anybody on the team that would be willing to ow? Sorry, I just adopted. I rescued a feral kitty the other day, and she just bit the shit out of me. Sorry. Um, I'm not. I'd love to get Will on sometime and talk to him about and ask him about a lot of this. Right? Is this working the way you guys intend? Right? What changes are you guys still making? Because I like the fact that it's more volatile and that we would be mining more things other than just, like you said, low temp diamonds, void opals, and painite all the time. So is it working as intended? In some ways, I think this is how it should have worked off the bat. The reality though is we had at least 8 months of mining, making the money that we've been making. So now the fact is anything that changes and diminishes that, and I'm not saying everybody's this way, but gamers tend to be pretty entitled. And as soon as you take something away from us like that, it's, oh my God, the people are going to start crying over it. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to put it more as, yeah, guys, we're making less now. The mechanics seems to actually make a lot more sense, save for one thing I'm about to get to. You can still make great money. It's still the most fun way, specifically deep core, the most fun way we've ever had to make that level of money, right? The one big question that's been in my mind that really makes me feel like there's something major bug is the notion, I think you touched on this a second ago, that if I show up with more cargo, I'm going to make more for mine than if you show up with less, you're going to make less.
Mhm.
And there's some gameplay, there's some mechanics in there that very much feel like something is wrong, right? And because that makes no sense, right? I mean, if I show up with 100 tons and you show up with 500 tons, one of the theories has been that when you jump into the system, at that point, whatever you have in your cargo hold gets counted. And so if 10 people jump in with 500 tons each, 5,000 tons get counted for being trading there, and it affects the price before anybody actually sells anything, right? And then the other problem with this is the data is changing so quickly, which is on the one hand kind of interesting from kind of an immersive, the way the galaxy should work standpoint, but the third party utilities can't keep up with it. Right. So, like, you can't just rely on you go to EDDB, it tells you this is the price, and then you head there. Like, for example, let me check Benetwite. And I look at let me see.
Can I make one point while you're looking that up?
No, please, yeah.
We look forward to the video that you're going to come out with about it.
Exactly.
You know what? I'm waiting. The reason I haven't done that yet is I've really been waiting for this to play out because I have so little faith that it's working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
The whole thing doesn't feel. I mean, I think you hit the net on the head. The whole thing, the head on the nail. The whole thing doesn't feel like it's working as intended. It feels like there's something that's just janky about it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me because it's so weird to me that it would even be broken because all the other commodities work just fine. So why would this one be so messed up? Like I don't understand how that happened.
Well, I think
the
it
other
might be.
thing- No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think it might be just because it's like a new implementation, so maybe they have to run through some testing. Because I mean, we get patches upon patches upon patches, and this isn't me saying anything bad about Frontier. It's just that's how it's happened.
Yeah. You were saying, Exegius?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that what was I saying? Basically, I agree that it seems like things don't make sense in the way they're working, right? And in very frustratingly typical Frontier fashion, they're being completely tight-lipped and silent about it, and so we're all left to sit here. And once again, the thing I hate doing in this game is speculate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're left to try to work out the mechanics, and for every post, and I haven't read the one you just put to us in Discord, Kai, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but for every post you find that is market changes explained, that's in a lot of ways very subjective opinions. Opinions kind of the wrong word, but it's a subjective experience, right? That one commander's having that either may or may not lined up with another seeing, and then you get this situation where it's this kind of bad. Well, no, I think it works this way. No, and there's we're thinking it works this way. Why the fuck is it somebody saying at Frontier going, guys, this is how it works now?
Well, on top of that, there's also there's a very real possibility that we can post 3 different links and they're all right because the first link was made on January 15th with patch 1 And then the second one was
Absolutely.
made on January 16th with patch 2, where there was a change. And then the third one was made on January 20th, where there was another patch. And they may all have been correct at one point.
Boy, it's hard to
It's
be a journalist right now for this game, isn't it?
absolutely
Well,
right. And in fact, one of the feature requests we've had for the ED tutorial site is whenever an article is written, we note what, not just the date, but what version of the game that was written during. Was it January 2020 update patch or update patch 2, or right? Like, so when you read the article, we're going to go through and make sure things are evergreens. We'll take things down that are wrong, but it is really hard to keep up with that based on are things changing and what does this patch do? And you're totally right.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like that there were two videos that came out today. One by Yamix, who I completely agree with the germ of what his video was about, which was that, hey guys, how come we don't have more value added to combat so that we can, instead of like nerfing mining, can we do
Oh,
something with combat? And
he couldn't be more
here's the
right.
thing. Here's the thing. I love the Yamix for his ability to analyze and whatever. I totally understand that the level of salt is too high for many. But whether or not you agree with the way
Style.
that he sort of promotes it and the confrontationalness or whatever you want to say about that, when you distill it down to just, okay, look at the analysis. Is the analysis correct or not? I gotta say, I would definitely love to see combat get boosted because it is the most dangerous of the abilities or the activities that you can do, and I would love to see that be brought in line with the earnings from mining.
If
And
if I
the other,
can,
go ahead.
no, no, no. I've got a story to tell about that, about combat pay. But finish your thought, and I'll
So,
jump
so
in.
the
Well,
other video that came out today was by Obsidian Ant, and Ant's video made a very, very cogent and very, very good point of, it's not even a question of is this a nerf, because if you nerf something, that's okay. You can make adjustments to the balance of something and you can nerf it. The problem isn't the nerf. The problem is the fact that it's oblique, the fact that it's opaque, the fact that we don't really know exactly what is working as intended and what isn't, and we don't have a very clear and defined sort of set of, like, these are the changes that we made, this is the reasoning for why we made them, and we're sticking by it. This is how it's going to work from this point forward.
well,
And
I
if
was
we
gonna say
had
too.
that, if we had that, then it would be much easier to say, like it or lump it, we at least understand it and we can move forward from there.
Yeah, I think
Okay, Ty,
Ant's
you or me?
completely right about that. Yeah, I just got to chime in. Yeah, he's
Go ahead.
completely.
Okay, what I was gonna say is I want to say we've talked about this on the show before, where it's like instead of just like hitting everything with the Nerf bat, why don't we try buffing the lesser things and seeing how that balances out and plays out? I think we've talked about that before. Am I correct or am I wrong?
No, we have. And I mean, here's the thing. We had a pretty substantial update. I think we've had two pretty substantial updates to exploration. We've had a big update to trading slash mining. We haven't had an update with combat to where they bring combat in line with the payouts to things. And yeah, I know there are missions out there that you can get and they do pay pretty well, but the dollar per hour is not in the ballpark of old school mining, and is I don't I'm not sure it's even the ballpark of a new school mining.
It's in the next city.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's not even the same continent practically.
Yeah.
So, what was that story about combat, Pegs? You just
Yeah, so about if you guys might remember, some of the older viewers might remember, we used to do a weekly creators roundtable streams, what we called it, and we kind of stopped it because we all got kind of sick of the fact that it did just turn into a bitch fest every week, and it just fell out, right? But when that was going pretty strong, and this was right around the Gnosis update and that debacle, and I can't remember which patch that was coming out right about then, but it was when they were gonna, and which actually turned out to not be a big deal. But you guys remember when they made the mission board so that you couldn't flop the mission board, right? You could,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
if you logged in the different modes, it didn't matter anymore, right?
no
Which
more
turned
board
out to,
hopping.
Right.
yeah, board hopping. God, that's the word I was looking for. I actually am trying to coin the term of
The
logging to main
frontier
menu and
flop.
back in as the frontier flop. Yeah, I'm trying to coin that term for that. But so they got rid of that, and so we met with, and I say we, it was about 8 or 10 of us. Me, Obsidian, down to the Strami, Yamix, Scorbius, who am I forgetting? DJ, I'm forgetting somebody, so forgive me. But we all met with Zach, right? Who's now I believe his title is VP of Publishing, and I can't
Zach
remember. It wasn't that at
Antonacci.
the time. Yes, Zach
Yeah, yeah.
Antonacci. And we had honestly a phenomenal, maybe hour and a half conversation. Right at the end of it, we were all super excited. I had never been more optimistic because Zach really listened. We gave him a lot of feedback, and we started specifically talking about the mission board stuff. And the way that we agreed is everybody would get their 5 minutes to kind of go over their thing. And I was probably third, fourth, something like that. And when it got to me, I said, okay, look, we're all dancing around the core problem here and the core reason that we board flip and things, and it's credits. Right. And this was before mining had come out. Right. So we didn't, and, so we weren't even getting that kind of pay. And this was back when the best thing you could do were Robigo VIP tourist missions that you could make just shy of 100 million an hour. Right.
Right.
And I said, look, here's the problem. Right now, I can take a Python with a, I don't know, 2 million credit rebuy and earn 80 to $100 million credits an hour with zero risk, right? Zero chance that I'm going to die. Or I can go get in a billion credit cutter with a 50 million credit rebuy and maybe I make 5 million an hour doing combat. Right? Maybe I'm making that. Okay. And at the time, mining paid pretty shitty too. And we talked about all the different things. And I said, look, this is going to sound absurd, right? This is going to sound absurd to you, but combat specifically needs to be buffed by 10 times its current pay.
No, that's
like
not
at
absurd
least.
at all.
Right? No, it's not, right? But it's going to sound absurd. And Zach's response, now again, he was very receptive and listened a lot, took a lot of notes, came back to us and asked a lot of questions. So at the time, it was great. Futured us a lot, like, okay, next time we talk, there was never a next time. And when he asked, he was like, wow, do you guys all really feel that way? Because that surprises me.
Really?
Let that sink in for a minute.
I mean,
And
you
we
gotta
all
look at
sit
it from
there.
our perspective, though. Like, combat is, I'm not gonna say it's arguably the most fun. That's subjective, but it's the most interactive thing. Your ship is in the most danger, and it also has the most chances for rebuy.
That's right. And one of the things I made clear to him is, look, the game shouldn't all be about credits, right? Fun for the sake of fun is why we're playing a video game. But the reality is, Elite does have an economy. It does have a credit system that is important, right? Rebuys are a real thing. And like you just said, like I've never gotten killed doing passenger missions, right? I've never gotten killed mining. I've gotten killed a shit ton doing combat. I mean, it's combat. That's what happens, right? So when we went through and pointed that out to him, again, when his response was, do you guys all feel the same? And that really surprises me. Of course, everybody's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Of course we all feel the same. Right. And, when I remember we were all like, kind of like you guys do, we have a text channel where we're chatting about stuff while we're talking. And the comments in there all of a sudden were like, are you kidding me? How does he not know this? How does Frontier not realize that there's this huge imbalance? And in fact, afterwards, one of the things that I give Yamix credit for doing is Yamix put together a little chart essentially of all the different career paths in Elite and what they pay, what their risk levels are, and essentially what the average rebuys are like, right? And we think, and we don't need to, kiss our own asses too much, but that went a long way toward the mining pay that we got, right? That they did let us have, they left mining at, because if you guys remember when mining first came out, everybody was convinced that, okay, they broke something. There's no way they mean it to pay this much. Right. And because one of the things in fact, one of the questions I asked Will bluntly or Zach, and I said, look, I'm not putting you on the spot. I don't necessarily expect an answer to this question, but what does Frontier think is an acceptable rate of pay per hour? It seems like it's 100 million because everything that's ever been above 100 million, they've nerfed, right? And certain things, like if you guys remember when the Rhea passenger missions first came out, you could make easily 250 million an hour doing nothing, right? That clearly needed to get nerfed. That was stupid,
Or
right?
skimmers.
Or skimmers, right?
Yeah,
That was pretty stupid too, right? And so everything that's been around that 100 million mark, they've left, right? And they've kind of never nerfed it, right? And so that's what I said. I said we seem that way, but you guys have never defined for us what what that is. And his response was, hey, I don't have an answer to that, but that's a great question, right? And I think it's something they just hadn't considered. So I do think that the mining pay we got was kind of a result of that, because got to remember how thrilled everybody was. There's really fun gameplay, and I can make a shit ton of credits from it. This is awesome, right? I mean,
But-
it was.
and it makes total sense to say I'm going to make a lot of money because I'm going about I'm working at this, I'm
That's
out
right. That's right.
resource gathering. But
It's
what
complex.
doesn't make any sense to me is I can go out there, I can blow up an anaconda, I can blow up a cutter, and it doesn't have any cargo that drops, any usable salvage, any
Well, think about
anything?
it this way. You kill one anaconda that, I mean, that's not easy, especially for an unengineered pilot, right? That's not easy at all. That, I'm going to make up a number here, takes you on the normal side 5 minutes, and it pays half what 1 ton of painite is worth.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, and I go back to a comment I made kind of off the beginning. We're really talking about materials, but it mentions this. Again, Brave been saying a long time ago, and this is a direct quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but this is what he meant, that he didn't want commanders to have to engage in any specific type of gameplay just to make credits. And it was specifically about credits, right? He didn't want explorers to have to do combat, and combat guys to have to mine, right? And miners to have to explore. Every modality should pay effectively the same, right? And
Raise your own
especially
trail.
when we talk at the risk, right? The risk to reward based relationship of combat. And God, here's the most obscene thing, right? When I had AXI on, we killed a Hydra, the biggest, baddest boss in the game, right? There's no way I could solo a Hydra. No way. I can barely solo a Basilisk, right? It paid 15 million credits and took us an hour.
Jeez.
Damn.
15 million credits, right? For the hardest, most advanced combat that takes the most skill, the biggest ships, I mean, period. And it paid 15 million credits. It paid less than what 1 core asteroid would pay in 15 minutes.
I mean,
That's rough.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
That's rough just to hear. Like, you hearing
right.
that, like, my heart just sank, and it's just like, man.
Now, let me be clear. Like I said a second ago, I don't do combat for money. I mean, obviously we never have, right? But combat inherently has an enjoyment factor that I love. And so, okay, there's definitely value in that. And you have to put value in that. But again, the realities of Elite are we do need credits. We've got to cover rebuys. We've got to buy modules and buy ships, right? And so when it is that completely one-sided and you force a guy like me to spend, I don't know, if I spend 100 hours mining painite just so I would never, ever, ever, ever have to do it again, I didn't choose to do that. I never would have done. If I could have done that by a combat, oh my God, that would have been so much more fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, so thanks for letting me tell that story. It was
No. That was a good
dude,
story.
Good story. Thank you.
for sure.
Like,
Just the last thing I'll say on that real quick is that, to Braben's comics, I remember reading that comment. I want to say it was like year 2 he made that comment. I remember reading that, and then back then it was fairly balanced, and now we're in a situation where, I enjoy combat. I enjoy PvE combat, and I'm starting to get in PvP combat, and I don't. No matter what I do at night, it's like, all right, well, if I want to go make money, I go do mining. I'm at 6.5 billion credits or whatever, but I don't really need the money right now. But if I need money, I'm gonna have to go do mining, and that's a big miss in my opinion. And I hope at some point they address it. I don't know if they will. I hope that with this 2020 update that we get a great big balance pass on a lot of stuff. So, there was a patch on Tuesday to fix a few minor things. I say minor things. It was the Thargoid hearts became immune. Became immune. Some crashes they fixed.
Hold on. Let me correct you real quick. The Thargoid hearts are still immune. That
it's still broke.
The
Sorry, go ahead.
notes were specific. I think they worded it pretty kind of trick people. It's that there's so there was a ticket open on that's been open for a long time. They've closed that ticket as fixed 3 different times. It currently, right now, it might have been reopened. When I talked to the AXI guys a few days ago, it's currently marked as fixed. Yet, what that patch means is they're still asking commanders to submit their logs every time they encounter a heart that can't be killed because they're still trying to fix it, right? Which just floors me that you need us to give you our logs as to how your game doesn't work and a heart. I mean, how like that? How can that be? I just think there's so much spaghetti code and technical debt in the game right
Hmm.
now that they can't figure that out, right? And
So to,
so,
to clear, oh,
yeah, no, please, yeah, no, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, go right ahead.
sorry. Just to clarify, yeah, so that was an existing issue. That was the one of the things that was meant to be addressed in patch 1 on January 7th or whatever. It was tested in the beta period and seemed to be working okay in the beta period. When they went through patch 1, at first the hearts did not seem to be immune. Then later people were having issues where they were finding it to be immune. Like you said, the patch or the issue was closed, listed as cleared. But today on the live stream that Frontier did with Paige and Will, or sorry, Paige and Steven, they were going through it and they said at the end, we have been getting reports that the hearts are still not fixed. It's another issue. Please give us more details. So Frontier has acknowledged that this is still, even though it's listed on the site, there it's going to have to be reopened or whatever because they publicly acknowledged it's not
That's
fixed right
good.
now.
Yeah,
Oh
that's good to
wow.
hear because I had not heard that yet
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I hadn't heard that either. So, well, there you go. They did fix Thargoid combat bonds not always being awarded. Um, and they also fixed an issue which could cause conflict zone victory tracker to disappear. So, at the very least, they got some of those fixed. So,
So yeah, the first issue with the patch on January 7th, they were trying to fix conflict zones, the fact that you would jump in and it would be empty, nobody would be there. So they fixed that, but they caused a separate issue where you would jump in and at the top the little like points tracker of who's in the lead or whatever, that would disappear, which would bug out the thing and the fight would just go on for forever without a change.
hmm,
This second patch from this week fixed that issue.
yeah. So that's gonna. There were some connection issues this weekend, but it seems like they got all those sorted out. Um, that's gonna bring us into Elite Week, Kai.
Right on. So I'm gonna run through this very, very fast. We had a chocked full top end of the show, so we're gonna go through this. New to the Discord, we've got PB Junkie, we've got Star Stricken from Leviathan Scout Regiment, we've got USMC Gunkata from the same Leviathan Scout Regiment, we've got Andy Polaris, we've got Dalvon from the New Player Initiative, Iron Beagle 17, Lieutenant Thanicus, Commander Ventura from Lave Radio, Commander Atris 5060, who's the AXI rep over at Hutton Orbital Radio. And by the way, I love the guy who does his voice, who does the old voice. It's hilarious. We've got Will Flanagan of FDev, as stated previously. We've got G70 Boss 429 from Leviathan Scout Radio, or Regiment, sorry. We've got Commander Unspent. We've got Kurgle from Lave Radio, Crazy Ivans, Nickel Pickle, Asica. Now, Asica, I want to give a special shout out to in the patch that just happened this week, patch 1.2 or whatever we're calling it. They fixed the CQC issue that was causing problems that basically for over a year has stopped PS4 players from being able to enjoy CQC. It was the issue that Lave Radio called out, created a tiny URL. They called it out. We called it out. Everybody in the community was trying to get that fixed. And uh, as speaking with Asica as recently as yesterday, it is seeming to be fixed. So the PS4 players after a year can now play CQC without what was happening before is the first time they would die, they would just get locked to a black screen. It would kick them out of the game. And now they can play. So congrats to them and congrats to Asica. We've got Symes 121, Krypton 20, Flying Gator, Commander Jetta, Slim. We've got Flossie Helen from Hutton Orbital and Dockers. We've got Dunkalora from Down to Earth Astronomy's stream and many others. Discord shoutouts. We've got Meg81. He got his second elite this week. He's got exploration and trade now. We've got Roughneck 57 got his trade elite. We got Slice and Dyson unlock the Corvette. Subsonic Slug, you already called out with regard to his friends. Our thoughts are with you.
Hell yeah.
Um, so last week's story time, hashtag story time in the Discord. And for those of you who want to get involved in the Discord and get a shout out and participate in the story time and do all of these things, tinyurl.com/ loose screws podcast. Loose screws. So it's LOOSESCREWS PODCAST. So last week's story time, we've got Tweak74, we've got myself, DJ Wiley, Dubs, who uh,
Dubs
dropped the
won.
Dubs won the internet this week with his just the tip picture of the tip of his Corvette going through the banner at Dav's Hope. We've got Raxla Smaxla, Meg81 in his new cutter upside down with a just the tip tribute. We got Alec Turner with a just the tip tribute and a buckyball variant of the same. We've got Roughneck 57 and Lustful Ewok, who came in a tight 10 that basically just made Dav's Hope hopeless. So much love to all of you commanders. We're actually, I'm very, very sorry. I promise next week we will get it. We're going to hold off on Kai's question on the fleet carriers for one more week, and we will absolutely for sure get it next week. All right, we're going to skip pro tip. We've got Elite Week. Okay, on Friday, last Friday, Drew Wagar dropped some news on his upcoming lore tour. That's going to be on April 2nd. If you go to his website, you will see they've got expanded coverage with regard to that, and they have created a new Discord, all of which will be in the show notes. Also on Friday, Burr Pit dropped the Witch Bates news, which covered the patch and Game Glass, and also the Drew Wagar lore tour. Burr Pit also put out a Thargoid report with a step-by-step breakdown to Thargoid activity, including sensor network report, infestations, etc., etc. Quickies with Exegius, finding selenium and other raws additional to the raw crystal sites. So obviously, we all know about heading out to the crystal sites, and we use it. But if you want to find a quick way to just get that selenium, Exegius has you covered, and it's in the show notes. Let's see here. Saturday was our interview with Edelweiss, sorry, that was released on Monday. Sunday, we had a recorded interview with Down to Earth, which you can get next Monday. Let's see here. Monday morning, this Monday, Hello Dave popped with the news from Down to Earth Astronomy about shadow nerfs, the supply and demand. Basically, Obsidian, Ant, Down to Earth Astronomy, Exegius, us, everyone's calling and seeing the same thing. It's not a question about is this a nerf, is this not a nerf? It's all just a question of okay, adjustments are being made. We really like to have a clear and easily understandable explanation of what those changes are and what they were intended to be. So if those two don't match, we can at least know to not even be upset about something just yet, that it's going to be fixed in the near future, or what it is that's happening. As stated, Obsidian Ant, so about the mining nerf video. Again, that links to all of this is going to be in the show notes. The interesting thing of note, as we said, is that the Void Opals and Painites are being hit much harder than the LTDs. Time will tell on this. I think we're going to see the LTDs take a dive soon. And stuff like, everyone's always been ignoring Benedictite and Rotom Splight and all the other ones. But I think Exegius is right. We're going to see coming up here, as things settle down in the next couple of weeks to a month, we're going to see a rotating market where it's going to be much more dynamic, and you're going to look on any given day and say, okay, what am I going to get? You're not going to say I'm going out for Painite. You're going to look up the thing and say, okay, today it's Alexandrite. And you're going to remember all the times that you cursed at seeing an Alexandrite rock before, but now you're going to want it. All right, this Tuesday, we had Vindicator Jones drop the video. That's going to be a link in the show notes. Vindicator Jones is back soon, TM. He dropped a little thing saying he's coming back to do some elite content, so we're excited to see him back. The pilot dropped his Fer-de-Lance video. And let me tell you something. I think a lot of Fer-de-Lances got sold that
Well, he's part of the reason why I'm sitting here engineering it right now.
That's right. That man can sell. If there's anything that his videos are, his videos aren't tutorials unless you're a car salesman, in which case his videos are definitely tutorials
Right.
because that man could sell ice to Eskimos. Every time he puts out a new ship video, I know I'm getting a new ship. All right, January. Oh, sorry. Also, Tuesday was the January 1.2 patch that fixed console issues, the stutter issues from the previous week. They had to wait a week to get it. It fixed the CQC for PS4, as we said. Um, at the Exegius special announcement, edtutorials.com dropped. The link to the video will be in the show notes. I think you may have heard about that somewhere. Let's see. Lave Radio was hosted on Tuesday by Ben as Colin was taking the night off. They had a great Game Glass interview for any interested. This is basically a situation where you can turn your iPad or your phone or your mobile device, whether it's an Android, whatever, into a free second screen. So for those of you that don't have a second screen and maybe you don't have a shiny HOTAS with all the buttons, or you can't. Maybe you're that guy that you can never remember what your heatsink button was on your 97 HOTAS buttons. Take a look at it because there's a lot you can get for free. In addition to, there's additional shards for additional money or whatever, but it does have a lot of free functionality. So check out Lave Radio for that very very long, very in-depth interview that will answer every question that you could have on that issue.
If I
What?
can maybe
Go ahead.
jump in just real quick there,
Sure.
specifically about Game Glass. Literally before we started tonight, I narrated a tutorial about Game Glass that I more than likely will release tomorrow. It depends on how late I'm up tonight and if I can edit it tonight or if I do it in the morning. But yeah, so I've been talking to the guys at Game Glass for quite a while, and like I said, I narrated the text for it all tonight, and now I've just got to slap the video together. So yeah, I'll be covering that too tomorrow, and I've got some mixed feelings on it. I think that for it's not as useful for me because of my setup and the fact that I do play in VR a lot. But if you're on a limited setup, you've got like maybe even like an X52 or the T Flight or the T1600 HOTAS or even keyboard and mouse, and you've got an extra tablet, extra phone, even an extra monitor. It's really great in that you've got this whole another level of way to control control your ship and then get data out of it. So yeah, I just thought I'd shout in real quick since I've been working on that myself.
Oh, for sure, man. So we've got Wednesday, Obsidian Ant released another issue, more on the mining issues and improved trading tools. On this one, as we discussed already, he did go into the issue with the opacity or the fact that we can't exactly see what is the difference with the mining. That's the issue that is bothering a lot of people. But there was a second issue that was brought up in that, which is improved trading tools. He looks at the actual system in game where it'll show you uh, you know, here is how much this is trading for in these places, but only if you have the commodity on you, and then you get there and the information is out of date, or it's question. It basically just he shows some of the prototypes that they showed previously back in the Kickstarter and things that they were going to have with the market, and he's asking some questions about these are neat and we would like to see some more of this. So check out his coverage on that. It's been pretty spot on and pretty interesting. Again, it'll be linked in the show notes. D2EA put out his blunderbuss build guide, which is definitely good stuff. If you want to pop an anaconda in 20 seconds, there you go. Let's see here. Thursday record day today. That brings us all the way up to today in the week. So stargazing tours lore expedition of started with Soul. So Paige and Steven from FDev put out a video where they go all through Soul. It's about an hour long. They talk about the lore. They talk about how the Federation of the United States of America dropped and just became the Federation. They talked about World War
Hoorah.
III and the history and Mars. They did a little trip through the whole Soul system. They talked, interestingly enough, about the Mars artifact that was found, and along with the fossilized aliens, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very very cool Lore Talk. I highly encourage you to go check it out. It'll be in the show notes, the link. And I'm so sorry to say, but Hutton Orbital, I didn't get to hear your show today. I was stuck at work late and I missed the Hutton Live show, but I very much look forward to listening to it tomorrow on the way to work. All I can say is when I pull up the where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Hold on one second. Here, here, here. That's the third. Here we go. Operation Hot Mess. As I refresh now, I'm seeing that on their absolutely bonkers mission to deliver mugs to every station in the galaxy, they have so far covered 11,001 of 55,280 stations. So 19.90% of the stations of the galaxy have got a brand new mug and are protected from mods. So Flossie and the whole crew, all we can say is we love you, keep on trucking, and for the mug. And the last thing I have to report on the Elite Week is that we got to wrap this up before too long because Picard dropped tonight, the first episode, and I want to go watch it.
You just spoiled.
What?
That was
Holy
my
crap, I didn't.
announcement.
Oh, I'm so glad you told me that. I didn't realize that was the case. Yeah, I might go in a minute. That's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
I have it queued up in a browser right now, so I'm like, when this is over, I'm hitting play. Just FYI.
So, real quick, the last thing I have to drop is the anti-Thargoid report. 23 January 3306. The following systems have now come under incursion. This is due to insufficient Thargoid activity. The infestation forces being cleared in the prior week. These stations will include AX conflict zones and burning stations. So, if you want to go rescue some people or squish some bugs, head over to Electra in the Pleiades. Head over to Pleiades sector DL-Y D65 and Wellington in the Witchhead Nebula. New infestation systems. This is a little weird. The Eagle Eye network is down. It's not. It's bugged out or something. And to be honest with you, we're not exactly sure if this is a bug or a problem or if this is part of the actual narrative of the Thargoids' return that things are acting weird. It was a whole discussion on one second. Oh,
This
did not want to cough in everybody's ears. It was a whole discussion in Lave Radio, and they're saying that it may actually be part of the narrative, or it may be a well disguised bug. We'll find out soon. TM. And that is it for the Week in Elite. Turning it back over to Ty.
well, that's gonna bring us over to my favorite news segment called Story Time with Old Man Ty. And uh, I don't. I I'm doing something different this week. So instead of taking you guys to a specific place where we're going to talk about the story of something, we're going to talk about the lore behind something that everybody sees every day and nobody really knows what it is. And that is witch space, also known as hyperspace. So what is witch space? Well, it is a higher dimensional region through which ships can travel between star systems at superluminal speeds. It's the uh, it's the uh, uh, it's the loading screen when you go between star systems. Um, Hyperspace technology originated in the early 2200s, but it wasn't until the 2800s that consumer ships began to take advantage of it. The first commercially available hyperspace system was known as the Faraway Jump System. The Faraway system was built over centuries on a complex series of monitoring satellites, branch lines, stop points, and rescue stations. These were all built using sublight technology. They would actually send ships out there along the major routes, figure out where they needed to put them, and then they would build uh, the satellites and the stop points and all that there, and then there would be a jump point between the two stars or whatnot. Ultimately, these lanes created hundreds of channels for ships to travel through. The faraway jump system is noted for its complexity of operation, requiring extensive pre-jump configuration by station-based faraway operation control systems. Hyperspacing ships required external help to initiate the jump. They were known for a certain sensitivity in operation, with the dangers of a misconfigured jump being listed as atomic reorganization and time displacement. Unsupervised jumps were extremely dangerous. Missed jumps, due to poor calculations, were a constant worry for travelers in those times. A large number of ships never arrived at their destinations, their fate unknown even today. So it was around this time that the phrase witch space first appeared. It was kind of the corridor that you travel through. People would see structures and ghost ships, or even people in the lights and stuff in the background. The faraway system did have one advantage, and that is rapid transit time. It was pretty much instantaneous, kind of how it is now. Thargoids, even back this far, could actually hover in witch space and ambush vessels while they were in transit. And this is why I think that they're actually from witch space, but that's a different story. The Galactic Cooperative got a hold of some Thargoid ships during the Inra-Thargoid War. And at the Inra base at Alameda Landing, the research team of engineer F.E. Ratling figured out how Thargoid drives worked to create stable wormholes. This was different than human drives, which shifted space around a ship. She created a prototype hybrid drive. Inra took over the modifications and put a pilot in there. And Effie voiced concern about whether a human could actually survive going through the wormhole. Ultimately, the pilot died, turning his body inside out when he returned from the wormhole. Inra launched an investigation and blamed Ratling for the accident and canceled the project. Secretly, though, Inra kept testing, and eventually they developed the very first hyperdrive. In 3125, it was all powered by a fuel known as Quirium. It's a high energy density material that was produced by Galcop and Inra. They closely guarded the secret of how to produce it, and most Quirium-based hyperdrives had a limited range, but some people were able to engineer the jump across the galaxy and rumored even to go to other galaxies. When Galcop dissolved in 3174, the secret formula was lost. The hyperspace industry suffered a major setback, and for the next 100 years, FTL travel was done more primitive and slower methods. With the demise of the Curium hyperdrive technology, the collapse of Galcop, hyperspace capabilities regressed. Between 3174 and 3270, a number of different drives tried to fill the void left by the Curium drives. However, the Type 2B proved to be the most popular. It was slower and had a shorter jump range. I believe it was 7 light years. These things would be filled by hydrogen. They would actually take days to actually go in between systems, sometimes weeks. They were able to take advantage of a technology called Star Dreamer that compressed time from the perspective of an individual by slowing their metabolism. And it gave the impression that time was passing far more quickly than normal. The major disadvantage to the Type 2 drive was, of course, the fact that the wormhole clouds that were left could be scanned and then tracked about where ships went. There was also rare cases where the hyperdrive mechanisms were hacked or engineered and were able to take advantage of strange, undocumented wormholes. It's been reported that jumps of distance of 655 light years were achieved. Research into better forms of hyperdrive technology were underway throughout this period. However, one event, and I forgot about this, and I found this very interesting. One event stands out as particularly poignant. The Antares was a starliner fitted with a prototype hyperspace drive. It launched on its maiden voyage in 3251, but was lost on its inaugural hyperspace jump. It was never heard from again, and no wreckage was ever found until 3302. I'll come back to that. The loss of the ship, the resultant investigations, and the application of safety recommendations as a result delayed the introduction of current hyperspace for many years. In January 3302, Sirius Corps launched a campaign to find wreckage of the Antares, and they found it. So, this brings us to 3290. That's when the fast mechanism was perfected that immediately made the Type 2B star systems obsolete, and this is where we got the current jump drive. The drive that was on the Antares, this was the drive that was tested. So, the question is, why is this the story for the week? Why is this the lore story for the week? Because there's a lot of lore based around the frameshift drive and witch space itself. It's believed by some that the Thargoids actually are their home is in witch space, and when we started going to that, even as far back as the Faraway Drive, we somehow violated their space, and we effectively started the war with them. Um, the uh, the new drives required an element called tantalum, and it's a raw material. So there was a great big tantalum rush, um, and this precipitated a number of hostile land grabs where tantalum was discovered or known to exist, including reclamation of the prison system by Lady Tahina Loren, also known as Salome. Um, so the frameshift drive is the key thing here, and what's interesting to me is how and maybe it's just me, but I know I have been going through enough jumps to where eventually I think I start seeing strange things in hyperspace. And um, there's actually been uh, some uh, Galnet posts about people seeing things in hyperspace or reporting things. There's a whole thing where the guy stole the Diamondback Explorer and he said he saw weird things. It was just a dock worker, I think. And so for story time this week, what we want you to do is just take a picture of your ship going to hyperspace or of your buddy ship going to hyperspace. If you want to get real cool, try to get multi-crew someone and get like a background, like sit in the back seat and get the picture of them up front or something, you know. But yeah, that's story time for the week. So.
Good story. Good story.
Yeah.
Dude, like, oh
Wow.
my god,
I
you
could,
talking about pilots being ripped inside out? Like, that made me squirm.
so I challenge you. You say that you wasted your time, searching for Raxla earlier this week, but you realize that your story time for with old man Ty turned out to be you telling everyone to go visit a place that's a gate but not a gate.
Yeah. Well.
I think that's inspired there.
Yeah. Um. So we actually got a couple of emails today, and I do want to finish up Commander Wiley's email, but I think we're going to do that next week. And the
Yeah.
reason why is because Star Trek, and because Kai decided to completely go over my announcement. I'm going to go over anyway. Star Trek Picard is out, and I literally have it queued up on another tab, so I'm about to hit stop and go watch. So,
Hell yeah, dude.
I
Hope you
want to
enjoy it.
take a moment and sincerely thank Commander Exegius for joining us this week.
Dude, Jesus, yes.
It was a real
You
blast.
guys are most welcome. I thank you for having me. This has absolutely been. I'm glad I stuck around too. This has been a lot of fun to listen to you guys.
Oh, dude, you were like one of the most awesome guests we've had. Like hearing your
Thank
racing
you.
experience and stuff, and then it's just like, oh hey, I tried a buckyball and first try, just you know.
That was definitely fun. I will absolutely do it. And just quickly, that's the whole reason I do the Friends on Friday one, is not only because I want to, expose people to the community, but hell, it's fun for me to get to know everybody and try all these different things, right? I mean, we were joking a little bit in chat maybe about griefers and stuff, and I don't make any judgment on the way if somebody plays a video game as long as they're not cheating, right?
I mean,
And I think that people should try, maybe not griefing if that's not your thing, but people should try everything this game has to offer, and Buckyball is one of those things.
okay. Well, I mean, dude, it's definitely been an honor. You've humbled me, like, after watching like just most of your like tutorial videos and stuff, and it's just like getting to talk to you, and it's just like this guy is actually way more awesome than I thought he was.
Well, good to know that
Like,
I didn't seem that awesome. No, I'm kidding. I'm
oh
kidding.
no, dude, you are
I'm
beyond
kidding.
amazing. Thank you so
I'm
much
kidding.
for
You're
talking
most
with us
welcome.
and stopping by.
Very kind.
On that note, is there like a Twitter handle or any other social media handle that people can find you on?
Yeah, I do. That's funny. I do have the Twitter handle Exegius. I rarely use it. I'll admit that
Hoorah.
I'm just like, I set it up to use it and I used it a little bit. In fact, I did get a pretty big honor. I guess it was about a week ago. I was YouTube's, what do they call it? Like rising creator of the day. So essentially
Oh
that meant
yeah.
I was featured on the main US trending page for 24 hours.
Yes, you deserve
Pretty
it so
damn
much.
epic. I gotta admit, that was, I was stunned when I got that and was pretty thrilled about it. So, oh, where was I going with that? I'm getting old and forgetting where I was
So we
going.
go,
But
so we want to
um,
post. We want to also
oh
hit
yeah,
your
social media.
YouTube
So
and
yeah, so
Twitch.
well, so on Twitch, because of that, on Twitter, and yeah, I'll get to your Twitch in a second. And Twitch, I'm just Exegius. And on Twitter, then the YouTube team did shout me out because of that, right? And so obviously, I did some tweeting around then, but I'll be blunt, I hate social media. It's just a complete afterthought for me, so I rarely do it. But yes, I am Exegius on Twitter and on Twitch, but really the YouTube channel and the ED tutorials site. Those are the two that I would shout people to.
And
Well,
you guys make sure
let's
you.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, just you guys make sure like you go check out like this new site, the ED tutorials. Like like he announced that, and even I got hyped for it. Like I was super hyped about seeing that, and was so glad he was stopping by the show. So make sure you guys go check that out, and let's build it up and keep it going.
So I agree with you 100%. I have Kai19103 at Kai19103 on Twitter, and I can't remember the last time I looked at it. But for me, if you want to talk to me, come to tinyurl.com/loose screws podcast. Come join the Discord, and that's where you're going to find me. And I know the same is true of Exegius because I see him all the time in there. Exegius, call out your Channel 11 Discord, and let's get that jumping.
Yeah, it's level 11. And I should create a title URL now that you say that, because I don't have one. So I won't shout out the crazy URL other than to say it's easy to find on the new ED tutorial site. It's literally the link's right there on the homepage. It's in the link. It should be in the description of essentially every video and every live stream I've ever done. So it's pretty easy to find. And the group's called Level 11 is
Well,
the
also
name.
in the
So.
same light of all this, I want to make sure that our listeners know that you can also find our Discord besides that tiny URL. If you go to our Twitter at LooseCruiseED, it's a pinned tweet, so you can always click that and join our Discord and continue the conversation with these guys. Like, dude, I hop in here all the time and see conversations that have been going on for hours, and I'm thoroughly impressed with it. Like, Kai is handling our Discord like a boss.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Kai, thank you for what you do. Exegius, thank you very much for joining us. I can't thank
Thanks
you
for having
enough.
me, guys. This has been
You
it's been an
are
absolute blast.
you are absolutely welcome back anytime. If anytime you would just want to, you need to plug something over here on our side, man, just hop, like if we're recording, hop in. If we're just shooting the shit, hop in. You're always welcome.
I will definitely keep you guys in the loop of stuff, and then
Awesome.
after the show, let's talk about getting you guys involved with ED tutorials and getting your content on our site.
Fantastic. And you know that
Yeah.
we're going to, as you've already heard, as when I do Elite Week, there's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 Exegius plugs in there already
Mhm.
anyways, because your
That's
stuff is quality, man.
Yeah.
that's great. Thanks. Bye. And hey, as we add new creators and do stuff to the site, hopefully there's some great articles there. You guys can plug them as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
Nice.
Dravenos, take us out, Bubba.
All right, guys. You know what the deal is. If you're going to go fly, make sure you never fly without a rebuy.
See you guys next time. Thank y'all.
For the mug.
And we're clear.